Hello, it's the Great Canadian Bagel here. We have our 2022 live stream tonight starting up here, and I'm with you, or here with you with Lexie.
Hello. I'm on push to talk tonight because I'm dying.
So the first order of business here, before we get into anything else, is I would like everyone to acknowledge the creation of the next red state, which is Florida. Florida is decisively going GOP in every measure right now. Rubio is winning almost as hard as the South Carolina Tim Scott. DeSantis is winning probably the hardest of any governor right now. I guess Vermont, but Phil Scott doesn't really count. And the House delegation is leaning extremely heavy Republican at 13-3 right now. Not quite the 18-10 I have forecast, but pretty damn high. So, we are going to give all of the great stuff here today, and we're going to be watching, or making fun of, probably, the most credible and most reliable name in news. But yeah, the CNN live coverage. What more do we is better than CNN?
The most trusted name.
The most,
and you know they're the most trusted name in news because they keep telling you on their coverage to trust them.
Losing at the moment, then you come down here, and this is
what are they on about right here? Let's see. Talking about Virginia. Good old Virginia. Yeah, Guam going red is a portent of bad news for tonight. I mean, pretty much everything so far is actually pretty bad. I'm just going to mute CNN here real quick. There's been, like, some of the early polls out in, like, Georgia and North Carolina and Ohio and such are not optimistic, but they're counting the early in-person votes and such before they're counting election day votes. So a lot of these are going to start shifting very heavily. And if you look at Georgia itself, let's actually bring up Georgia here. As you can see here, a lot of the places that have been counted already are like Atlanta, which are the blue parts of Georgia, and a lot of these more rural, more small-towny red parts of Georgia haven't been counted yet. So you should expect that places like Georgia are going to start sliding pretty hard red soon. And it... Well, needless to say.
I think that's just the CA... Oh, no, your map.
This is just the NBC map, but I can toss her up in chat here for people who want to look at them. They are doing a decent enough job, and I do not have the resources to do it myself.
Chris, I have ground-shattering news for you.
We have the ground-shattering news here from live correspondence with...
Ron DeSantis won the governor's race. I didn't even know that there was anyone competing with him, so this is pretty crazy.
Wow, can you imagine that? Didn't you know the media was always going on about how bad Ron DeSantis was, how he's bad at governing, he was oppressing people's rights, destroying free speech. He was burning books, you know.
Burning books.
Yeah. Because, you know, if you take pornographic
certainly
books...
certainly not porn books in school libraries.
If you take porn books at a school, that's burning books, you know. We gotta let children have access to porn. That's really important.
I am going to be keeping track of Twitter, because Twitter has a lot of great things to say. So I'll keep you guys updated throughout the night of what mostly the hashtag Vote Blue in 22 is saying, because I've been having a fantastic time watching this hashtag.
Staffer for the retiring Republican.
I'm gonna get rid of these subtitles. Okay, so there's a couple... Oh, I'm gonna mute CNN again. So, just gonna go over here, and we're gonna discuss... This is governors. Which governor races are interesting here? So there's a couple that are not interesting, and we're not gonna talk those. But there's a smaller amount that actually are quite interesting here. So, of the ones that actually are counting right now, there's Georgia and Pennsylvania. Georgia's interesting only insofar as how much does Stacey Abrams lose by, because she's going to lose. And it's going to be really funny when she loses by a larger margin than 2018, because this time...
Oh, but Chris, she's 51% right now. What do you mean she's gonna lose?
No. She's going to lose by a bigger margin than 2018, and this time... I just can't wait what her excuse is going to be. Is it going to be voter suppression when Georgia's having all-time high turnouts?
I think you mean she's gonna almost win the Georgia governorship.
Oh, yeah. All... the power of the almost win. I don't understand.
Hasn't she been like going around giving talks as like the one who almost won the Georgia election?
Well, you know how the media's been going on about the last 2 years about how bad it is that Trump says the 2020 election was fraudulent, right?
Of course.
Stacey Abrams is really the true OG of that. She continues to deny that she lost Georgia's election fairly in 2018. Even though, at the time, that was also record turnout in Georgia. And turnout is going up now after somehow, we don't know how this could have possibly happened, because the GOP in Georgia passed a bill that increased elections, that was the worst, how did Biden phrase it? It was like Jim Crow 2.0. But, turnout's higher now. So, I guess Jim Crow increases voter turnout.
They turned out all the KKK members that were sleeping.
All the black KKK? Whew.
Some guy's asking if AOC is looking for waitressing jobs right now. Is her seat up for grabs right now, or is that just for the future?
She, on paper, it's up for grabs, though we don't have any results from New York yet, so it's hard to say what it is. This is the House map, and we can see here, no votes. It might be hard to actually see her here, because the New York districts are tiny. They are...
Well, hers is like 2 streets and a bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to... Oh, there we go. It's so hard to get it with the mouse here. Yeah, no votes in. It's deep New York, so I'm not really expecting it, but, theoretically, if everyone in New York voted, she could lose. Like, the turnout in her district is really low, normally. But we'll see. One thing I do want to highlight here, because this is quite a surprise. We go into Florida here. We go over to House 27. This is Miami. Oh, the Republicans are quite leading in this seat, and they're now at 16-5 in Florida. And, some people were criticizing my forecast, saying my Florida numbers might have been too pro-GOP, but I forecast 18. I might have undercalled it, because they are still leading in this one, and they're likely going to win House 1, so they might be at 19. We'll see.
Just a minor flex.
If we go to overall in Florida, under this governor, Miami-Dade went Republican. What is this? One of the safest D counties in Florida has flipped and is now of fairly R-heavy county here. It's pretty hard to emphasize here how shocking this is. Like, Florida is probably, it might be the sleeper headline of the night. Florida's not a swing state anymore. It's done.
Yeah, I think Tim Pool was talking about this, and Miami-Dade, like, it's not just a solid blue state, solid blue district. It's an urban, like a deep urban district, isn't it?
Yeah, it has Miami in it. Miami's, I think, the biggest city in Florida.
Now, I think Tim Pool's theory was that this is being spearheaded by Cuban immigrants who can see that the Democrats are socialists and don't want to go back to that life. What do you think?
Yes, I think so too. And I think specifically recently, the Democrats' policies on CRT and abortion and stuff are really deeply offending the extremely Catholic Latino vote in Florida, which is an extreme portion of Florida. It's a lot of people there are Hispanic immigrants, notably from Cuban and Venezuelan extraction, 2 countries that are not known to have the best relationship with communism.
Well, I mean, they seem to have a good enough relationship since they're still together.
not all the people who left them. Just trying to bring up here.
Okay, whoa, hang on. What the hell is CNN looking at? What is this?
Well, this is Ohio. What are they saying?
All rural counties,
What is
that-
this weird ass circle map they're doing?
So I'm not being
Are we
dismissive
at the
of
same
the
point in
public
this stream here? I'm not seeing a circle map.
context. We have a lot of votes to come
I
in.
think you might be
This is backed
behind.
up a little tiny bit, but again, this is margins in the
Try
suburbs.
refreshing
Aha.
the page.
Likely the Republicans will carry
It was
County.
behind.
The question is, can you be competitive?
'Cause of course it was. Good old-
Oh, yeah, there you go. You're good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bunch of circles on Atlanta. I don't know what's going on.
And you come down here where we have no votes yet.
That's
Gray, that means we have
strange.
no votes yet in DeKalb County. So that's the whole competition. The Democratic base is here. The suburbs.
So they've been focusing really heavily tonight on Georgia and on Philadelphia, and I don't know if anybody's been watching the CNN coverage tonight, but these two schmucks here, I don't know who these guys are, but they've been cracking me up all night. They keep talking about Philadelphia and saying, oh, there's all these reasons that the vote's going to take longer tonight, and then they'll straight up look at the camera and be like, it's not a conspiracy, guys. Trust your officials, trust us. It's like, y'all, you need to lay it on a little thinner here. It's absolutely killing me. They are priming people so hard for vote counting to take longer, specifically in Philadelphia. It looks so fishy, and it's cracking me up. What do you think?
In the sense we saw in Ohio, we've already projected Mike
Yeah.
Ryan, the Republicans over.
They're coping
Yep.
really hard.
Seems legit. So, like, why is Philadelphia so important?
It's the biggest city in Pennsylvania. It's where a lot of the people in Pennsylvania is, and Pennsylvania, quite notably, is really bad at counting votes, and the media and the Democrats like to defend off the that the fact they're bad at counting votes in Pennsylvania. Be like, that's how elections are. Meanwhile, France, Italy, Sweden, Canada all count ballots. Florida's
Florida's doing fine.
We'll all have the election done and pretty much everything counted in a few hours. But, you know, it'll be July 13th, 2037 by the time we have the Philadelphia numbers.
Chat's speculating it's because Philly's blue and the rest of the state is red.
Thanks, John King.
Partially, and partially,
Oh, that's Pittsburgh, sorry.
and partially,
Running for the House of Representatives in Florida.
what's the word for it? The Democrats, regardless of any other possible concerns, they benefit from allowing as many sketchy mail-in ballots to come in as possible because they want everyone to possibly vote, because mail-in ballots allow you to violate secret ballots and allow activist family members to browbeat and bully their family members into voting who wouldn't have voted otherwise. It's a really,
Yeah, I think
it is a,
Philadelphia. Sorry.
it's really a travesty that mail-in ballots are allowed outside of the extremely niche scenarios of like overseas military members.
Yeah, Philadelphia, they were saying earlier, they had 36,000 mail-in ballots that weren't going to be counted because they weren't filled out properly, or, you know, there was some kind of problem with them, and they had this thing where you could, like, you could be contacted to, like, come in and cure your ballots, but then, and here's the thing, if you didn't cure your ballot, you could vote in person, which you can't convince me that that doesn't mean that some people's votes are going to be counted twice. I don't care I don't care if they say these ballots are wrong. Like, surely some wrong ballots are going to get counted. It has to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's always going to be, regardless of anything else, like a small amount of fraudulent stuff going on. But the main thing is you got to reduce it as much as you can. And the really important one here is you got to stop stuff like the mail-in ballot things where it's not actually fraud. It's just people are violating the... You've defeated the purpose of secret ballots. Your ballot's not secret.
The thing about the improper ballots getting counted, though, like, I don't even necessarily... It doesn't even need to be fraud. Like, surely just by someone screwing up, some of those improper ballots are going to get counted just by mistake.
Absolutely. There's no way about it. But you're going to get ballots counted twice if you allow people to vote by mail and in person.
This is a much more competitive district.
This is a new seat.
So CNN's counting so far that the Republicans have 3 pickups in the House, and nobody else has any pickups anywhere else. So that's fun. That's already going well. So, Chris, so far, how is your prediction matching up to what's being counted so far?
Well, if we toss over back to NBC here, they have 20 Democrat seats to 47 Republicans. So by this metric, I'm off by a lot because, you know, most seats are undecided. That was a bad joke, sorry. If we pop here, can you see this? Is this going?
I'm on a bit of a delay.
And these lines, this would have, look at that.
There it is.
0.6, right? This is a 50-50 district. Donald Trump would have carried this according to these lines.
Yeah, here we go. This is the wrong one for this. Give me a second.
And you have the Republican
I don't have
Yeah,
enough.
you zoomed in a little bit. It's a little bit cut off on the stream.
Here we go. We zoomed out a bit. Can people see this? So this is my final House forecast.
Is hold what you got and take some away.
Now, there was, I think, a couple polls that came out after I did my final forecast, so if I considered those polls, it would change things a bit, but because of transparency purposes, I'm not going to proactively change my or update my result. The last one I publicly published, so this is the one we're going with. So it might be slightly skewed by missing a couple polls that has happened in the past, but the polls I've missed were generally pro-GOP polls, unless you consider the... just get rid of that for a second. Unless you consider the silliness that was that Politico Morning Consult poll that came out yesterday, that was D+5. Meanwhile, Data for Progress was D+4. The partisan Democrat pollster, D+4.
So, Chris, you know, I'm not a very educated voice on this stream, but that map looked like an absolute tragedy for Democrats. Is that true?
251 GOP seats in the House would be their best result since 1928, I believe. Though 1946 would be close, so I'd have to double check that one myself, just to make sure I'm not spreading the false facts.
Spreading misinformation.
Yeah.
Man, I miss back when it was fake news, because misinformation is such a lamer term. Can we just go back to fake news? Getting kicked off Twitter for spreading COVID fake news. Let's get back to that. That's way more fun.
The one I hate more is disinformation. Disinformation is is almost like an assault on the English language. It doesn't feel like that should be a valid term.
I like how they always come in pairs, misinformation and disinformation. I don't really know what the distinction between the two of those is supposed to be, but I don't think it matters because people always reference them together.
Disinformation is like intentional lying, whereas misinformation is accidental.
That's a dumbass thing to say.
Yes.
That's just called being wrong and lying.
Yep. So we're gonna silence CNN again because CNN is kind of
They're not saying anything
they are
that interesting.
This is one thing I hate about regular election coverage is they always so overly focus on like random counties or random House seats. No one cares about Prince William County. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know who Abigail Spanberger is,
Like,
but I'll keep an ear
if they
out
were
on the
talking
CNN
about
coverage.
if they were talking about what's the word for it? Miami-Dade or something where it's a really populous city that flipped Republican, that's something to talk about, but some random county, North Carolina, I think, like who cares?
I think it's because there's like not a whole lot of votes counted yet, so they're just kind of
CNN doesn't
grabbing
want
at
to talk
straws.
about the good news for the Republicans here. So
That's true. Jared Walsh is asking, can you please go to the second GA? Do you know what that means?
that's the wrong. What? He means second congressional district.
Ah, okay. I wonder what percentage of CNN viewership is ironic. Well, at least 2 viewers are there tonight, so
Here we go.
we're adding to that percentage.
Right now, 24% in, and it's 60 to 41, or 59 to 41 for the Democrats and the Republicans. Again, keep in mind, at least for some reason in Georgia, this is actually a good thing, frankly, but it's different than the norm. They counted early votes first, and the early votes tilted Democrat hard, so this is going to shift more red. 100%. And
How long do you think that they're going to be counting tonight? Like, how late are they going to make me stay up tonight?
well, if we go by Florida, they're almost done. They have 79% in. And just as
Florida's the only one I care about.
this is an update, Florida's now 18.5 for House seats. And, some people were thinking I'm overestimating the GOP there. Oh, well, you're wrong.
So, Chris, what states should we be watching tonight? Florida's already being surprising. Who else do you think we should be looking out for?
Okay, so the big interesting ones, the other big interesting ones that we have data for right now, obviously Georgia and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is big because you both have the gubernatorial and the Senate race here, though there's almost no votes counted in, so it's kind of irrelevant here. There's been a lot of late momentum to Oz. I think it's better to phrase it as more of a recession in Fetterman support. Fetterman's collapsed after everyone realized that he had a stroke and can barely speak. So there is a lot of... We are kind of expecting that Oz is going to pull out here, though it's probably going to wait until all of the election day ballots are counted for that to really come in because it's close. And the gubernatorial one is also quite interesting because the gubernatorial race has Doug Mastriano versus Shapiro. And the reason why this one is particularly interesting is, well, if you are concerned about election integrity, Shapiro's not going to change that. And Pennsylvania is one of the most important states in the country regarding that. So it is a very important race for the Republicans to win since they are very concerned about election integrity. And if you are Pennsylvanian, it's also a very important race because crime. And Shapiro, the former Attorney General of Pennsylvania, was really good at letting people out of jail.
Love it. Jared says Nevada, New Hampshire, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Arizona, as well as Oregon, are states to watch. What do you think?
I agree with all those except Oklahoma. I'm not... Do you mean
I
like the
assume
gubernatorial
OK is
race?
Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's Oklahoma. Do you mean the gubernatorial race in Oklahoma? Because the Senate... Unfortunately, Jimmy, yes, you can't super chat because I need to be monetized on YouTube to be super chatting, so I need to get another... What is that? 615 subs. So if you can find 615 of your friends to all subscribe, that'd be great.
You should set up a stream element so you can get donations that way.
That's
a very nice sentiment, though, Jimmy. Thank you.
It's appreciated. The other, if we're talking about Senate, though, there's a couple. The Senate races, you have a slightly few more that are interesting. So you have the first level ones that are really interesting, which is obviously Georgia, Pennsylvania again. You have New Hampshire, which a lot of the late polls had this very close, with maybe Bolduc slightly leading, and notably for Bolduc, Sununu, I don't know how to pronounce that name, has endorsed him near the end of the race here, which is quite big because Sununu's very popular, and he's more of the moderate-ish wing. He's not like full moderate, but he's like straddling moderate and the more conservative elements of the GOP, so it could help Bolduc, who's on the more conservative wing, rally moderate support to him, which could help push him across the line.
I personally have a vested interest in New Hampshire going GOP for the Senate, because if they do, I win $20.
The good old power of election betting. And
if you guys were wondering if Chris's predictions are trustworthy, I trust them enough to put $70 on various states going GOP based on his predictions. So let's hope that he's correct. I think he is. I would really, really love for New Hampshire to go GOP. I think they would like that too, but I mostly just want my $20.
And Jimmy, yes, it does suck. I don't really like YouTube's monetization policy. I get way more traffic here, so I prioritize YouTube because, it's great and all to have Rumble's nice, generous compensation package, but I get very few views and clicks on Rumble, so it doesn't really cost anything to put in to run Rumble at the same time, but YouTube, for now, is by far the better platform to actually get attraction and content.
Rocco, I trust your prediction. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 1,000 subs by 2024.
That is the goal. And it's very possible. It depends.
What was your stretch goal for this year? Because you reached your initial goal, didn't you?
I set like quarterly goals for sub targets. My fall goal for September to the end of November was originally 50 subs in a stretch of 75, and I'm at this point we are at plus 90 this fall, so that's pretty good. Blew past all my targets, and my final year-end goal would be to get another 37. And if I get that, then things are going on target. Next year, the goal is about 150 or so. Because there's not many elections next year, so be less normal content.
Yeah, Rocco, that wasn't his fault. That was me talking about that. We will get to your midterm predictions in a second.
Just
I
to
didn't actually see that message.
Digress for a moment to John Doe here. Right now, Fetterman's doing quote-unquote okay in Pennsylvania, but we only have 7% in, and they're my understanding is Pennsylvania is also counting in-person early votes first, so that by polling is leaning to Democrats, so that's not that surprising. Some other things here to watch out as the night evolves and more states close. We have Arizona, which is also going to be another nail-biter race for the Senate. And then there's some long shot races in Colorado and Washington. Washington will be quite late, and it will be closing near midnight here, so that's going to be fun. But
oh god, they only close at midnight. They won't be counted till like 2 a.m.
I mean, these are West Coast liberal states, so who knows how long. Nevada's also one to watch out for, as is Wisconsin, but I'm pretty sure Wisconsin and Nevada are going to... By the time they're counting, we should have an idea if they're going red, because if North Carolina actually stays blue, as it is right now, then Wisconsin and Nevada probably are going to go blue, frankly. I don't think North Carolina is going to stay that way. It would be extremely surprising. Especially since North Carolina is actually getting redder right now, as is Florida and Texas. Because one thing that people, especially people in the U.S., or Republicans in the U.S., I've had this like misconception for a bit that the internal migration inside the U.S., so like people fleeing California, New York, and such, is bluing or purpling states. That seems to be the opposite. You poll internal U.S. migrants. The internal migrants are far more conservative than the states they're moving to on average. In other words, the native-born Texan is more Democrat-leaning than the immigrants to Texas. So, if you're Texan, the immigrants to Texas are keeping your state red, so you should be happy about that.
I just want to quickly... Oh my goodness. Guys, I apologize in advance. I can't speak very intelligently right now. I've been sick for like 5 days. My brain is fried. But transmission from Twitter. I've been perusing the Vote Blue in 22 hashtag, and I'm enjoying this tweet that I found. It says, "We cast our votes by mail from Mexico. We will be moving back home in a few short months. We are a same-gender married couple with a multicultural family. What type of country will we be taking our sons back to? We are scared." Chris, how does Mexico like same-sex couples?
I'm pretty sure if it's even legal there, it's only been legalized very recently. Generally speaking, very Catholic countries do not approve.
Yeah, Twitter's banging tonight, I gotta say.
Oh, we have the most unsurprising news here, boys and girls. Georgia. Brian Kemp is winning now. Oh my god. Say it ain't so. Stacey Abrams isn't going to win. The most famous loser of elections ever isn't going to... Oh no. Oh shucks. It's almost like every single poll had this. But for some reason, Democrats were still hyping her. Let's go back
An important
and
point
see what
to make.
CNN has to say about North Carolina here.
So
I just popped this up. From
Vexed Vet on Twitter says, I voted for marijuana today.
5 outstanding votes. So what do we know that's missing? And as David noted, so you see
That's
these
it.
big blue circle. There's a lot of votes missing in the Raleigh area. There's a lot of votes missing in the Charlotte area. Up here by Winston-Salem, the blue tells you the Democrat is leading there now. Now, even in places where Ted Budd is not going to catch or pass Sherry Beasley, David's point about so much day of votes still being out there, that's where he narrows the margins, right? When that vote comes in, if it comes in like we saw in 2020, and as the polling indicates it will come in this year, and again, we'll count it. We'll
Beto
see if
is
that's the
more
way it turns out.
famous.
But then you also
Let's see.
see all these.
You're
medium
sick as
size,
well,
moderate
Rocco? I'm
size,
sorry.
even smaller size red circles. There is a ton.
The
of
North
outstanding
Carolina
votes
race is over.
in
Is
the
that true?
Republican areas of North Carolina. That will be election day vote, and that will be disproportionately.
Chris, I think
Ted
your
Budd
mic
leading
might
in
be
these places.
muted.
You just pop one
No,
up.
I just haven't said anything.
Yeah, you see Union County. He's leading.
Okay, just leaving me hanging. Thanks for that.
I was just looking at numbers here. I'm not really sure what you're...
Let's see when we get up.
I don't think... I mean, North Carolina is still counting. It's 47% in, and it's mostly just been early votes counted so far, so I don't know. Doesn't seem like it's... I would call it at all. Some people are, but they're doing their own hopium.
To stay leading, the question is, can Ted Budd narrow the margins? If he does, that will change.
Well, I mean,
with 94%
there has to be other robots out there. Like, you don't just have Mark Zuckerberg sitting there by himself, right?
percentage points.
He has to have some friends.
Well, he spent like how many billions of dollars to get some
Oh,
friends?
jeez. $25 billion a year for the next 10 years on the metaverse. Anyone in chat, do you think you would go home, or you'd want to commute to the office via the metaverse?
You can't convince me that's not tax avoidance.
We'll see. Oh, Walsh, if you mean by that, then yeah, I don't... Beasley winning in North Carolina would be wild. The polls don't support it at all, and North Carolina is not a leaning... It's like a plus... I think it's like a R+3 state, so if the popular vote is leaning R, she should lose easily.
Okay, Chris, does Beto have a hope in hell in Texas?
No, not at all. He already lost versus Ted Cruz when Ted Cruz at the peak of his unpopularity. And Greg Abbott is quite popular.
Did you
Possibly
hear that he...
the best wheelchair-bound politician in American history?
Didn't I tell you that he was paralyzed and
Yeah.
you didn't actually know until I told you that?
I did not know until you said that. He's
He
definitely
never talks about it.
he's definitely better than FDR, who was a wildly overrated president.
What's your spicy opinion on FDR?
Oh, FDR was a disaster. He made the only redeeming quality about FDR is he was good at running World War II. What?
Did you hear that Beto put out like a dancing TikTok today? Or no, it wasn't. It wouldn't have been today. It was sometime on the weekend.
Sometime that's cringe as heck.
Yeah, I think it was the last-ditch attempt to get some voters in.
That sounds like a Beto move. I think it was Crowder was at one point had some of his guys go down there, and they were wearing shirts that was Beto's for Beto.
Betas for Beto, yeah.
Betas
yeah,
for
yeah.
Beto, and got a bunch of people to cover that. And because Walsh is begging for it. Highlight here. Rhode Island's 2nd District, 62% reporting. Alan Fung, which is a fun name, is leading. This is quite an... Upset's not necessarily the correct word. This has been... I've been forecasting this for a while now, but this is a pretty big pickup considering Connecticut is a very blue state. Winning half of the state's congressional districts. Whew.
Yeah, I have never heard of Rhode Island being red.
Well, I'd like to introduce you to... when was the last election that were red? Bear with me a second. I want to say that was like the 20s.
Oh, John Fetterman. Apparently he's 80% right now. I mean, they just started counting, but I can't even make fun of the guy. No, I can actually. I know he had a stroke, but like, strokes don't change how you physically look, do they?
No.
Yeah, cause like the man looks like he had like about 15 blows to the head before this stroke happened. Like I don't know how you end up looking like that guy.
Okay, so update here. The last time Rhode Island voted red was 1984 for presidential terms.
Nice. I don't think strokes change like the size of your ears compared to your head.
And the last time it voted for Republican congressperson was 1992. Or 1988 for the second district, which Fung is winning in right now.
Oh, it's back to those two guys on CNN.
Oh, we gotta watch them. They're just... What are they
I
gonna
love
say?
these guys. I don't know who they are, but I love them.
I really want to see CNN's cope as Ted Budd catches up here, which he's obviously going to do.
Oh, make sure you hit the thing to go live.
You're looking at this map, you start in the Northeast. Number one, ranked choice voting here. And we got a long way to go in this district here.
Oh god, Maine uses ranked choice voting? That's a demerit against Maine if I ever have to go to the US. That's a terrible voting system. You can watch my playlist on that if you want to. Want to find
Yeah, he's got a lot of
details.
coverage on that.
Ranked choice voting is the worst voting system.
Don't control facial movement. Yeah, I don't think the stroke made John Fetterman look that way. I think he's just looked a little inbred since he was born.
But we are very early in the count in New Hampshire. But if you're at the Democratic campaign headquarters or the Republican campaign headquarters, these ones here, you're looking at these.
Oh, New Hampshire, excellent.
These seats, but if they're red at the end of the night, you're talking about.
Yeah, Alaska's ranked choice vote is potentially the only reason why the House district might go Democrat. It depends on which of the Republican candidates get the round or has the most votes. Actually, is there still two? I haven't followed that closely, but there was two at one point.
In the state of Rhode Island, you see red in Rhode Island.
I did see your joke, Rocco. It's very good.
For a very, very long time. This is a surprising candidate here, very, very close. Seth Magaziner, state treasurer, against the former Cranston mayor Alan Fung.
He's right. If you see red, oh, check out Alan Fung. Look at this absolute unit of a man.
We'll have a majority, and I would argue that majority.
Look at this guy go. Well done.
Democratic 13 point. Joe Biden, by the lines of this district today, would have won it by 13 points in 2020, so watch the results. Up about 62%. That's a very close race. We keep watching it. But if you're looking at the map, that would be a big takeaway for the Republicans. We come down here.
Did you expect anything in Rhode Island to go red? You said that you've been predicting this, haven't you?
Yep, we're gonna do it. We're gonna switch over to the other thing. Let's see here. But Joe, you can see here, I had one in Rhode Island going red, one in Connecticut going red. I have 7 in New York. I'm pretty sure this is wrong. I've always been really sure this is wrong. And one thing I really want to emphasize here, now that I have this map up again and I'm thinking about it, one of the commenters on the last video did remind me of, or pointed out something regarding how in Colorado, but this is generally applicable. Because of how the U.S. district seats, since it's just completely arbitrary districting, more or less, some of my seats are being classified as the wrong type of area. So I have one Colorado seat that's probably going Democrat that is being categorized as Republican because the math I use to determine if it's urban or not doesn't work when you take a very urban city and put a bunch of empty fields in it, which a lot of these cities or a lot of these districts are. But it goes both ways. There's some areas that are a lot of rural areas with a small chunk of city that are classified the other way. So, long story short, I think this should balance out and there's not going to be any meaningful skew in the overall numbers, seat wins, but there's going to be individual seats like probably Colorado second where I'm just completely wrong in. But
that's good to know ahead of time.
I'm letting you guys know now so that if I am wrong in those seats, you can't hold it against me.
Some guy's wondering, any chance that Nancy loses her seat?
No. Not at all.
She's in San Francisco?
Yep. Just another check-in on Florida here. They're at 20 GOP seats here. Wow. Looks like I underestimated Florida a bit. Aw, shucks.
Whoa, whoa. Some blue areas turned red since we last saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, based Florida. Look at them go. I'm so proud. What is that white area in the middle?
It's not done counting.
Ah.
Or it's not counted enough yet. Again, Florida's not a swing state anymore. Florida's red now. DeSantis has ended Florida's swing state status. Not anymore. Anyone talking in 2024 that Florida's a swing state is a dumbass. You shouldn't listen to them.
That's pretty good demonstration of how a strong conservative political presence actually is good for you, because we hear it in Canada a lot, the conservatives can't be too conservative or they'll lose people, but I don't think that's true, and we're seeing that actively not be true in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Canada, please learn from this. Pierre, I hope you're watching. You were saying Pierre had some plans to impact immigration earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, he did an interview recently in the National Post, recently today, for the National Post, which is surprising. He doesn't normally do a lot of big interviews with media, but I guess he's going to take the exception to the only right-wing big paper in Canada. Big as in big readership, that is. And it's not... If you are of my persuasion and you're not a big fan of immigration in general, for various reasons, it's not perfect for you as a Canadian, but it is a nice step in the right direction. Basically, he's going to remove the arbitrariness from the system. Instead of having the government deciding how many immigrants we're going to have, it's going to be based off of the need. And by need, it's going to be private businesses who can't find real workers can sponsor immigrants, and that's the only way we'll get immigrants going forward if he won an election.
Do you think that'll bring in very many immigrants at all?
Oh, it'll bring in immigrants, but it'll probably reduce the numbers by half at most.
I imagine it'll probably bring in higher quality immigrants, won't it?
Yeah,
probably a lot of doctors, I would imagine.
Probably, especially combined with his moves to make it more credentialized. So we're having slow ticking here. NBC has this nice little update here. So 4 net gains so far, but in general terms, a lot of these places that haven't been called, like we go Georgia here, House 12, House 1, House 11, and House 6 are all very red, and you should expect them to go red anyways. They're just not calling them yet because, to be fair, I think they're doing a due diligence here. But once you start adding stuff like that, and you're going to see even more, this is going to start ticking up quite rapidly as more states close. And I wouldn't be surprised if this blows... The GOP could blow past my prediction here. My prediction is possibly a bit conservative on it, but we'll see. Because I suspect the shy Tory factor here is going to be really big compared to previous elections. And there's just no way... what's the word for it? To really account for that properly. Because my model handles voting error based off of previous track records. If it's getting worse, it's harder to forecast. It's hard to have a moving target. If that makes sense. Like, if you want to experience this, get a bow and get your friend to have a target and run and try to hit it. It's way harder.
Please don't do that at home. I'd like to point out that 538 has some live coverage, and I'm going to be checking in on that intermittently because I want to dunk on Nate Silver live.
Oh my god. I think Nate Silver changed this morning his numbers for the percent chance the GOP will win the Senate from like 54 to 59. It's like, you absolute hack. Nothing changed. That's a dumb
way to measure that too.
It is a dumb way. But there's no way. Nothing changed from yesterday to today. You're only updating it because you know you've always been wrong.
He got cold feet about lying.
Yep.
I do want to point out the only good thing about 538 is that their little icon for the midterm election is kind of cool. It has all the states with their respective I voted stickers on them, and it's pretty cute. But it looks like for Senate so far. Oh well, this shouldn't be different than anything else because this is the actual numbers. Man, I was hoping I could see a comparison with his prediction. Because he's got, 37 Democrats, 36 Republicans for Senate right now, and 77 to 116 for the House, whatever. But that's just like the live results as we know them right now, so that won't be different than anybody else.
We go over here to my previous Senate forecast, the last one. Make it bigger again. So this is final one. So Arizona and New Hampshire, too close to call. Leaning Republican, but very close. Though Arizona, since Thursday, I think has actually moved safer Republican, but that's not 100% here. And I would just like to note, I was wrong in Florida. Sorry, guys. I had Florida 5 to 10% margin for Marco Rubio. He's actually up plus 14 points right now. So, sorry.
Wow, unfollowing.
Yeah, got unsubscribed now. I was underestimated the GOP vote in Florida. Embarrassing.
I'm sorry, I just have to point out some guy's comment. Hit like if you want AOC as Speaker of the House. I absolutely want AOC as Speaker of the House. I want her to run for president, please.
I think she'll do it. I'm pretty sure Biden, following this midterm in the near future, if this is as bad as I think it's going to be, and as bad as it's looking right now, if this trend continues, I think he's going to announce sometime next year that he's not going to run again. Right before they would actually start having people declare candidacy for the Democratic primary.
Wait, you think AOC's not going to run again?
No. Biden.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sick brain got me confused.
Biden won't run again, and then by proxy, it's going to open up the nomination to everyone, and I think AOC will throw her hat in the ring.
Oh my god, I hope that's true. I want that reality.
It'll be something, all right. We have bad news to report. The beta has lost in Texas. He's down now 4 percentage points. Whew, Rocco, 350 seats. Oh, wait, electoral votes. Oh, never mind. That, 350 is possible. Let me just do a quick math here. I'll get back to you. Lexie, go on with Twitter.
Oh, yes, Twitter. Let's see what Twitter's saying. Hang on.
Because I'm doing math.
Before we go to Twitter, I was looking at 538's most recent projection, and I don't know what his projections were before because, like, I gotta say, I don't follow this guy too closely, but what I'm seeing so far in his final projection is awful for Democrats. Holy shit. For the House, at least. I don't know if that would be surprising or what, but 84 and 100 that Republicans win the House. Democrats have absolutely tanked. And I'm sorry, I really shouldn't be reading these because I don't have the brain that Chris has, but it's not looking good. And I feel like this is probably a lot less optimistic. Let me see what his previous one was.
Okay, just an update here to answer the question. If we use my House forecast and then we assume the presidential race will look like that in 2024, then there's 360 seats potential for the GOP. I think that could go up to 366 with or 365 with New Mexico. I think if trends continue, New Mexico might be in play. That trend continuing would have to be that the Hispanic population continues drifting right, which they currently are. It's not a guarantee that will continue happening because the events and issues and such in 2024 will be different, hopefully, as it will be really bad for all of us involved that the US is still having rampant inflation and shitty economy in 2 years. Hopefully it just naturally recovers, if nothing else. But
If you still... Oh, sorry.
365, I think, is probably the upper end of what the GOP could get in 2024. Any more than that, and you start having to flip, like, Washington or, like, Connecticut, or New Jersey, which is not impossible, but doesn't seem very likely at all.
I have some interest from Twitter. Someone on Twitter, apparently there's something called the Blue Voter Guide. It says, want a great way to build your progressive ballot? Want a free ride to and from the polls today? From people who are literally called Blue Voter Guide. So that sounds perfectly legal. Thank you for that, Democrat Daisy.
You are allowed to drive voters to the polls, to be fair. That is legal.
Are you allowed to drive voters to the polls and say this drive to the polls was sponsored by Democrats?
I think technically yes.
That doesn't sound right. The same person also says, guess who is providing debt relief to literally millions of students? Democrats. Guess who's against student debt relief? Republicans. Register to vote and vote accordingly. I will vote accordingly. I mean, if I could. I can't, but how would you vote accordingly with that information, Chris?
Well, do you want to bankrupt the nation? Vote Democrat.
I love when they, like, it's often a good strategy, like a good debate strategy to present two opposing viewpoints, like, neutrally, as if it's obvious which one the proper one is. But I still love when Democrats do it, because a lot of the time they're basically campaigning for Republicans and don't even realize.
They are very good at that, somehow. Like, I don't know how they're this good at that, but they are. Like, my favorite one is they'll go and they'll stump, like, Stacey Abrams will stump me, like, we need to... Abortions are a method to fight inflation. And it's like, who are you trying to appeal to? Who do you think is going to be like, ah, yes, the powerful tool to fight inflation? Aborting our children.
I want to put it out there that the 538, the way that 538 presents its information is cancerous, and I hate it. When you make your website, don't be like these people.
I will do what I want. I will make it the most obnoxious thing in the world, and then you have to pay $5 to see it nicely.
Yeah, he's got all these dumb graphs like, oh, Republicans win 84 out of 100 elections. I don't care. Show me a goddamn map.
I'll also just
And
say...
they all come with like a 1,500-word essay underneath them. It's pissing me off.
I'll also just say here that anyone giving you percentages is probably full of it. The percentages are uncalibratable and are probably, not entirely, but probably completely made up. Their model might spit out a percentage, but again, you can't verify it. Because you only have the election once. And frankly, you'd need to have the election repeated like 100 times before you could have your percentage mean something. And simulating it doesn't count. But here, we are in this fun limbo period for the next 7 minutes. Well, probably more like the next 27 minutes. While we're waiting for the next wave of polls in Wisconsin, Iowa, Louisiana, the Dakotas, New York, and Colorado to all close. Once that wave of poll precinct closures starts hitting us, it'll really be clear where this night is going. Right now, it's looking favorable for the Republicans, but there's not enough data yet. The next wave should solidify that. Next 27 minutes or so. And then we'll really know where things are. Because if we just look here, gubernatorial-wise, pretty much all of the interesting gubernatorial races that we have polls for have all been decided, except Pennsylvania, which only has 10% in, because, of course, Pennsylvania is bad at counting ballots. Meanwhile, Florida has 84%. Even Georgia has 52%. So, like, what are you doing, Pennsylvania?
I've switched my Twitter canvassing to hashtag vote blue to save democracy. It's much more fun than vote blue in 22. And one that I keep seeing, it's a headline. McCarthy won't rule out cuts to Social Security and Medicare if Republicans win back Congress. And I'm wondering where I can vote for this man.
No, you gotta keep
Like,
the Ponzi
they're
scheme.
campaigning hard.
Now, let's see. What is chat saying here? So,
Oh, people are already coping. It's very early, folks. A lot of ballots to be counted. We got this.
Rocco, for 2024, because the Senate map is so favorable for the Republicans, they're defending a bunch of safe states, and there's 9 vulnerable states. 3 are states the GOP should just probably win by default. There's Montana, there's West Virginia, and there's Ohio. They should win those by default, especially if Trump's on ballot, which he looks like he will be. There's the 3 Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which are always competitive in election years these days. And then there's 3 other ones, which I call the Hispanic Belt these days, which is New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada. And if Latinos and Hispanics keep shifting the way they are, those should be competitive. So in 2024, if they walk away with 54 tonight, which I think they will, it's possible they could get up to 63. And even if they start losing some, getting over 60 is very possible here, which will be a very interesting result. That allows you to do a lot of things if you actually have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. Laura Kelly, that's Kansas?
I'm sorry. Twitter's being cringe. Mark Hamill is retweeting this tweet about it's this chick who I guess used to be Miss North Carolina or something. She was like a pageant winner. And she's talking about how she wanted to be a mom and she got pregnant and her baby had some kind of like genetic disease. So she was like, I knew I had to give her back to God and got a fucking abortion because of that. Honey, this is not a good look. Oh my God.
I couldn't take care of my child, so I murdered them. Only
My
Democrat things.
child was different, so I killed it. Like, oh my God, this is... And that was the... I sent this to you earlier. There was some dumbass reply to that tweet saying, like, oh, I almost died when my child died inside me or whatever, as if delivering a baby that has passed away is an abortion. Like, this is the abortion debate, and this is what they're crowing about all over Twitter for these elections tonight. It's brain dead. It's, oh my God, it makes me mad. I just needed to put that out there. I'm sorry. Go back to things that make much more sense than this Twitter surf that I'm doing.
In general terms, I guess to finish my comment there, Rocco, yeah, your prediction looks plausible enough right now. It's always very hard to say 2 years in the future for 2024, and this midterm, it depends on Shy Tory or the Shy Tory factor, but they're currently sitting at 82 seats confirmed, and a bunch of these are all but confirmed. Like, it probably should be sitting around 120-ish if you were to label everything. I think is probably a done deal, because to pick Georgia again, House 1's not going to flip Democrat. Sorry, guys. Like, you could just label this one done. The precincts that are left there are going to be, like, you'll be able to see right here clearly. Liberty and Chatham County are all in pretty much, and it's just Bullock County, and I don't think there's enough voters in Bullock County to meaningfully change the result in this congressional district. Also worth noting, Kemp is now up +7, which is roughly where I think I have him, and he's likely to continue gaining ground until about 80-90% of votes in, and then I think it's just mail-in ballots, which will be counted later, and then he might lose a bit of ground with the mail-in ballots. But at this point, Kemp is pretty much confirmed to have won, and that should surprise nobody, because Stacey Abrams is bad at elections.
Oh my God. This chick tweets, poll time Twitter, it's time to show these GOP fascist Republicans how America really feels and give them a little preview of election day. Retweet to spread this around and show that America is going to hashtag vote blue to save democracy. 31,203 votes. What do you think the percentages were?
Come on, chat. Let's see what you get. What do you think the percentages?
I'll send you the screenshot as proof for when live chat guesses.
Yeah, we're gonna wait on this one for a bit. Oh, actually, speaking of that, how do I make this work again? Bear with me a second. Aha! Let's start a poll.
Oh, this is cracking me up. Oh, the question, Rocco, was there was a poll on Twitter. How are people going to vote? 31,000 respondents. 2 options, Democrat or Republican. What do you think those percentages looked like?
Okay, we're putting our own poll in chat here for a second while you guys muster over that. How many seats do we think the GOP is going to get? Vote in the poll. And then we'll see who's the closest. And by that I mean, which if chat is good at this. And you don't get bonus points for picking my number.
I'm just going to come out with the answer. It was 96.6% Republicans. And the woman who posted the poll, by the way, her handle is at Liberal Dog Mom. Shout out to her. And she had locked the tweet so that only people that she follows can reply to it. But she says, looks like the fucking fascists found this poll. You're not going to win on Twitter or in real life, you racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, incel, inbred fascists. Chris, I don't know why she's talking to me, because I can't vote in this, but those are a lot of descriptors of me.
The funny thing...
I love it. I love this. I love this
It's
website.
really worth noting to everyone involved, right? If the other party wins, that's fascism. That's destroying our democracy. The other guy's winning is killing democracy. Only we can win. Single party rule is democracy. Multi-party rule is fascism. Rocco, I can only have one chat poll at a time, I think. Or can I? Only one chat poll at a time, I think. Oh, wait. Let's see. Will this let me work? Let's check this out. I'm gonna try it. I only get 4 options, so we're gonna go with ones I think are the most likely, and then the long shot. Let's see. Will this let me have 2 polls?
Oh no,
or did that replace
I'm
it?
sad. Chris, I was duped. This is a parody account. But
Oh.
that's okay. That's okay, though. I've seen a lot of good parody accounts tonight. But the reason that they're so good is because they are so believable.
Still only 10% in Pennsylvania. Ohio, the Senate, the GOP's closing in. North Carolina Senate, GOP's closing in. And Georgia Senate, Walker has taken the lead, but he's still below 50, so this doesn't really mean anything, because they are 2-round runoff voting, so until someone has more than 50%, it doesn't really mean much. It just means the top 2 will go, and the top 2 are obviously going to be Warnock and Walker. So, doesn't mean much for now. We just had our next wave of polls close, so we are just going to start seeing the interesting states come up here. And now we have some more interesting races to keep an eye out. We have Arizona Senate and Colorado Senate and Wisconsin Senate now reporting. And we have some interesting gubernatorial ones, which is Michigan's and Arizona's, notably. That are now being considered. Oh, and Wisconsin's too. I have Wisconsin and Arizona going Republican. Wisconsin very close, though. Michigan I didn't do a detailed model on, but Tudor Dixon does have a chance here. Especially the late polls are very close for her. So it is something we're going to keep an eye out going forward. But for now, let us see what CNN is doing. But we're going to bump live, because apparently
Check up here a
when I
little bit.
walk
So you
away,
first you come to
it
Fulton County.
they
Senator
stop.
Warnock getting 75% of the vote there. Let's just go back and look at 2020 and the presidential race.
CNN is very interested in
Joe Biden
Georgia
getting
once again.
73%. So we come back here.
I mean-
They're only clicking the blue
Senator Warnock doing what he has to
districts.
do is
Well, you can only talk about the blue parts of Georgia. That's how they cope.
Cobb County, right? You see, it's a more competitive suburb, but Joe
Is
Biden
Georgia
won by
some
14
kind?
points.
Is
Now
Georgia
let's come back
supposed to be
where
some
we
kind
are
of swing
and look at
state?
the
No.
Senate race in Cobb
It's a
County.
lean
It's
GOP
20%
state.
race. So around isn't the
Why do
Atlanta
they keep
area at the
they
moment.
focused on
They're worn off
Georgia
their
a lot
building
last
quite
time
well.
too? I don't know why they're so
It's
interested in
moving into
Georgia.
DeKalb County.
Because it has a contentious Senate race, but it
So in
is
Atlanta and the
a lean
suburbs,
GOP state
Senator
right now.
Warnock is running strong. The question
It's
is,
trending a little Democrat, but
one of the
I think
challenges was, do the
that's
Trump voters
probably
turn out
going to start
for not
switching
Donald Trump,
in the
right?
near
Well,
future.
that's where Brian Kemp helps. Even though Brian Kemp and Donald Trump are in a feud, you have a Republican governor
I love
running
Twitter
well
so
ahead of
much. This
Herschel
is
Walker.
fantastic.
Republicans are coming out to vote, and in these counties where it's again a small population center, it's less than 1% of the vote. So you say, well, it's not significant, but there are dozens of them, and those votes add up. This is a 28-point Donald Trump district, and there you
Man,
see Herschel Walker running up.
This kind of like generic
election
election coverage, where they just point at random counties and talk about them in detail.
Sorry, let me come
Do people like that?
Come on back there.
Chat, what do you think? It's just pointing at random counties and talking about how they've done before in previous elections and how they're doing now. Like, Lawrence County? Like,
I think it's because there's a gunman off screen, and if there's even a second of dead air, these guys get assassinated.
how many people even live in Lawrence County? 50,000. Why are we talking about a county of 50,000 people?
So they've been comparing a lot between like Senate or governor numbers today and like how that district went in the presidential election. Is that a good comparison to make? I have no idea how to judge that. What do you think?
Sorry, say that again?
So they've been doing a lot of comparisons between like how a district is voting right now and how they voted in the 2020 presidential election. Is that like a viable comparison to make?
Yeah, that is an actually meaningful comparison, because what you're doing there is you're saying, like, especially in the US midterms, how much has this changed since they voted the last election, right? Because the midterms are typically anti-vote for the incumbent, and the question is, how much is the anti-vote? Typically, the last year or two in the US, it's been 13 percentage point swing from Biden. The 2021 Virginia, for example, is a very big example of this. It was a 13-point swing. Same with New Jersey. So we're sort of expecting that in most meaningful districts right now, but it's not 100% certain. So the comparison to 2021 or 2020, sorry, does make sense. It's just, I think they probably oversell it and they go way too much detail, and they talk about relatively small counties in way too much detail. Like, DeKalb County, it's not the smallest place in the world, but like, we're still talking about a fairly small place, all things considered. It's like, what is this? 760,000 people? Like, that might sound like a lot of people, but we're talking about a state that is like, I think 10 million or 16 million or something like that. So you're talking about a huge amount of airtime on a relatively small population.
So far, CNN has, for the House, 40 Democrats and 87 Republicans. Would you expect... So, like, obviously they count from east to west, right? And we know, generally, that Democrats are the strongest on the coasts. So would you expect, like, a big comeback for Democrats at some point? Or is it kind of looking bad for them already since they've already counted, like, the Eastern Seaboard?
The Eastern Seaboard is still counting right now. Like, it's not... That's not really in... We'll really know in... by the end of this hour where this is going. It's looking bad. Don't get me wrong. But we don't really know. Just to do a zoom in on Arizona here with some precincts reporting. House 9 and House 8 apparently being confirmed by NBC with 0 votes in. So never mind. That's just extremely ambitious. No one has voted. Oh, to be fair, though, House 9 has no opposition, so never mind. And so is House 8. Literally uncontested run. I hate when that happens. Like, how is it there's so many uncontested races that happen in the U.S.? Let's do it on Tennessee.
Yeah, and then people complain about it. Like, are those areas can't be that deep red?
Who knows? Tennessee is very red right now. It's only 11% in some of these places like Nashville, but every single count just riding in Tennessee is red right now.
Shout out to Tennessee.
Yeah, Florida is very red. if we just dive in here, there's only it's 20-8 because the 3 not called all look like they're going to go Democrat. I say that, but House 23 and House 9 here are still pretty close. If we get 22-6 in Florida, like that's it. Florida's no longer. No one can even consider Florida a swing state. It would be just disgusting to say that.
Thank you very much for coming, Mash Mash. And Jimmy's asking, what's everyone hoping for in 2024? I'd love to see DeSantis Lake with Trump campaigning for them and back on Twitter. What do you think?
Ooh, I don't think Lake will run in 2024.
Yeah, like DeSantis has had time to kind of build up his clout, but I literally just learned about Carrie Lake a couple of weeks ago.
Carrie Lake strikes me as a very honest and very straightforward person, and she said that she's in it for Arizona. If she's going to run, it's going to be 2030. But expect...
Is she young?
I think she's 50-something.
That's young enough. Biden's like 100.
She's 53. I think if she would run for president, it'd be either 2028 or 2030. It depends. But I don't think she's just going to abandon Arizona right away.
Hacksource would prefer DeSantis over Trump. Who would you prefer, Chris?
That's a hard one.
President, I assume.
That's a hard one. I like both of them. I think DeSantis is more polished, but the in my opinion, the main issue in the U.S. is you have a really deeply rooted bureaucratic state that I think you really have to get rid of. And it remains to be seen if DeSantis has the balls to just delete everybody, like basically fire all the bureaucrats.
Yeah, that's like one of the only things that Trump can be relied on to actually do.
Yeah, at this point, I think Trump going in, he would do it out of spite, and we all know what Trump is like when he has spite.
I would love another Trump term because it would ruin any remaining shred of Democrat credibility that they have left.
I think realistically, Trump, if he tosses his hat in next week, which he's going to make an announcement, a big announcement on the 15th, I think that big announcement is he's going to be running. If he throws his hat in, I don't think DeSantis will throw his hat in. There's been some people like carving up that the two of them have a rivalry or that there's going to contest, but DeSantis is smart. I don't think he'll run against Trump. There's no way he's going to beat Trump right now. Unless he has some really good evidence that Trump is, like, not what he says he is, but that's going to be pretty hard to convince people, I think.
I think that DeSantis can still do a lot of good just in Florida. But also, did you see that Trump called DeSantis, he called him Ron DeSanctimonious. He was, like, doing a little name-calling at an event recently.
Yeah.
And people weren't sure if that meant that there was, like, some rivalry between them or what, but I think it's just to get people talking.
Mash, to answer your question there, the yellow on this NBC map here means that they haven't decided who... They're not calling it. They color it when it's called. They color it blue or red when it's called, and they have it yellow. They're undecided right now. Let's go around.
What one's the ones that haven't closed yet?
White is not closed, and gray is there's no election going on. Let's see. Some of these don't have much in. Pennsylvania's still at 13%, and Michigan's already at 9%. Once again, Pennsylvania's really bad at counting.
Chris, do you think that Trump would get Ron DeSantis to be his vice president?
I don't think so. Not at all. Dixon does have Kent, but that's pretty low turnout so far, or count so far, so we'll see if that stays that way.
Yeah, Yeti, I agree. And if he's turning Florida so red just by being governor, which I think is why Florida's turning red, I think that if he spends a little more time as governor of Florida to get Florida really, really out of swing state territory, that'll be helpful for Republicans in future presidential elections too.
Other thing worth noting too regarding DeSantis as a governor is is one of the only governors in the U.S. who actually has the balls to do anything. So he kind of is a good example to other governors. Like, you can do things. You are an elected politician who has actual power.
Well, I think he's the reason that we get people like Carrie Lake popping up.
Yeah, I would allow that.
People aren't so scared to be conservative anymore.
Yep. That's one of those things. It's like, you shouldn't, if you're a conservative, you shouldn't be embarrassed to be a conservative. You should, like, there's time and a place to talk about politics, but if people are talking about politics, you have as much right to talk about politics and say your conservative things as they have to say anything else. And self-censoring yourself just makes people think there is no disagreement when there actually is.
I think being able to see the success that his policies have in Florida, too, is really emboldening to people in other states.
I would agree.
Like, wow, he passed that bill against, like, gender-affirming care for children, and it didn't ruin his career. I could do that in my state, you know?
To be fair, he didn't actually pass a bill on it. He got, because the GOP House contingent in Florida and their legislature didn't want to take a bill, vote on it, but he got the state medical board to ban it. So
Same shit.
it's not banned legislatively. It's just the state medical board is like, you're not allowed to use this treatment option. So the doctor's
That's an even better way to do it.
the doctor's self-regulation has self-regulated themselves. Yeah, Rocco, on the young generation, there was coverage early. I think it was Daily Wire was covering on this. They had a pollster on who was talking about this. What's the word I'm looking for? The Zoomers, the 24s and unders, which I think most people watching the stream probably fall into. Generally speaking, a lot of my viewers are that demographic. Are significantly more conservative on pretty much all social issues than millennials are. Like, I think it was like on not liking gender theory, right? That's a big one. 90% of Gen Zers don't like gender theory. No other demographic dislikes it that much. They dislike it the most. And millennials like it the most. 55% actually support gender theory. Millennials.
It's almost like that's what happens when you shove things down people's throats when they're children.
I really wouldn't be surprised if Rocco, I'm not sure if 25, I think 25 is still Zoomer. Depends on your definitions, though.
Someone else is 25 here.
Oh, no. I'm old now.
It was Chris's birthday yesterday, guys.
Yep. Yeah, if not,
1996 is the start year, yeah. Zoomers.
yeah, there's lots of Zoomers then. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. This is not necessarily a good thing either, but I wouldn't be surprised if, because of how much has been pushed onto young people, if we start seeing in 10, 20 years, young politician or the next generation of politicians coming in might be actively homophobic. Like, not just, we don't, like, you're not pro gender theory or pro radical LGBT stuff, but like actively homophobic. That, I think the pendulum might swing there, and I don't think that's necessarily, or I don't think that's a good thing. I don't like a lot of this stuff.
It's unfortunate, but you can kind of see where it comes from, you know?
Yeah, you can see where it comes from. If you just smash people in the head with this idea, they're going to take the opposite opinion. That's how this always goes. You can't push a rope. You push a rope, it's going to curl up into a knot.
So, Chris, this is off topic, but I just saw they've got about 10% or 11% of the Michigan vote in right now, and it's looking like kind of competitive for the Republican competitor for Gretchen Whitmer. What do you think that's going to look like?
Well, bringing it up here, we have a couple big counties that are not reporting in. Like, the big one for the Democrats is Wayne's not in, and pretty much all overall, Michigan's not reporting. So the real question is the rural turnout going to match the Democrat turnout in Wayne? Right now, we're talking about a 40,000 vote margin, which is really thin. So I suspect it might go the other way, and Dixon might win here.
What
But
was your prediction for
I didn't do a proper prediction for Michigan. I didn't have enough time. Let's see what the exit polls here say.
I mean, has Gretchen Whitmer encouraged a lot of goodwill over the last however many years, like for real?
No.
Isn't Gretchen Whitmer the one that put like Rona patients into nursing homes? Wasn't that her?
She was one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if we see her lose. I don't think it's guaranteed by all means, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I would really like to see her go down.
Ooh, we are now at 102 GOP seats and counting with a flip of 5. I think that number is going to keep going up here because there are more seats that are really close. I'm going to zoom in on New Hampshire for a second just to check in. House 1 and House 2 are... New Hampshire's also sucking at counting votes. They're at 17% and they closed ages ago. What's wrong,
New Hampshire? I want my money!
Right now, Hassan is still leading by 17, but we're at 28% in, and I think they're still counting early votes. J.D. Vance is now leading in Ohio, to surprise of nobody who knows Ohio. Ted Budd is now leading in North Carolina, to the surprise of nobody who knows North Carolina. Georgia, it's going back and forth, which should be the surprise to no one who knows Georgia. So far, no one should be surprised.
So, Legit Hack Source asks, what's been more fun to cover? These midterms, the French election, or the Ontario provincial election?
Oh, I get way more hits for the U.S. stuff, but there's so much... The problem with the U.S. is there's so many different elections that you want to do, because every Senate race and every gubernatorial race has to be modeled separately because they're not the same. Like, the overall numbers don't track, so it's significantly more work to do the U.S. But, at the same token, if I'm right, it's a lot more impressive to do the U.S. because my main competition in the U.S. is like Politico and 538, who both don't have particularly good track records at this. So.
You enjoyed the Brazilian election, didn't you?
I was really interested in the Brazilian election. I'm very disappointed. Nope, my model's correct. Technically, my simplified model.
You were really, really close.
There were a couple people who were commenting who were saying it, or like, I can't remember what they were saying. They're basically like, I bet you regret pushing this now, and it's like, not really, because I basically projected the range is going to be like 55 to 60 for Bolsonaro, and if you increase turnout, it was going to be like 61 to 55 for Lula, and they both are within those ranges, so.
What's going on with that right now? Did he start a coup yet?
No, I think it looks like he's just properly conceded now.
Lame.
Though his supporters are still, from my understanding, trying to get the military to do something, but I guess it's actually not as bad as it sounds to the rest of us, because, what's the word for it? I guess constitutionally in Brazil, the military actually is empowered to decide if elections are fraudulent or not, which seems weird, but apparently that's how that works. I'm not an expert on Brazil, so if I'm wrong there, I mean, don't like guarantee that. Don't act like that's fact, but
in what recent election did your model do best?
I think it was Ontario. Depends on what you mean best. Like, there's two different metrics, right? So metric 1 is the correct seat projections, and metric 2 is popular vote being correct. I was more correct on seats in Quebec, but I was better on popular vote in Ontario. But both weren't that exciting elections, so I'm going to go with a more wildcard one and say the Alberta provincial election, or UCP leadership race, because there wasn't a lot of polls on that. And the polls were contradictory, and I predicted almost exactly the order people were going to go out, and very close to the actual vote shares with very few polls, so that felt pretty good.
Very nice.
Though CBC leadership was also pretty good. My overall errors in both regards were slightly higher than normal, but I was the closest of anyone to getting Pierre's vote share. So
that
that
was a fun one to follow.
was a fun one. It's more fun when people are talking about issues that you care about, even if you disagree with them sometimes.
Especially if it's a country that you live in.
In hindsight, I kind of wish I did 2021 Nova Scotia, but there were so few polls, it's kind of hard to do Nova Scotia. Like, it's just never polled. Let's check out New York. Oh, there's only 1% in, so this is not even worth checking New York here.
Let's look at New Hampshire again.
They haven't counted any more ballots in New Hampshire.
Fuck are they doing?
They're very slow.
Bruh.
So we're right in the middle of red country counting ballots now. So these Congress districts are going to explode here. In the next 30 to 40 minutes, expect this to probably climb by 100 seats. Pretty rapidly. Because we have the entire South reporting now, most of the entire Midwest reporting now, and most of the West that is GOP inclined is voting now. So this is something to keep an eye out. This is going to spike here. And Democrats won't really get a spike until California and Washington start reporting. One that'll be worth keeping an eye out later on is... what is this? Nevada. So we have, obviously, 4 House districts. House 2 and House 4 should be almost trivial. These should go Republican. The interesting one is House 3 here. This could go, and the early voting totals for House 1 in Las Vegas aren't great. Like, the early vote is pretty low, so that could very well also go. Like, we could see 4 in Nevada. It's not impossible. I think it's unlikely, but it is something we should consider here.
Holy shit, Reno is in Nevada?
Yeah.
I shot a man in Reno. Oh,
So,
you don't get that joke.
I
God
don't,
damn it.
but I know
It's a Johnny Cash song.
I know it is a joke.
I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die.
Also, I just want to point out here, Colorado's districts, like, who drew this? This House District 3, that's a terrible district.
Scroll down a bit, hun. It's a bit cut off.
Oh. You see this? Look how terrible this is. This is a weird shape. It's like half the state.
Oh, it's terrible. You're right.
This is a terrible district.
Yeti says, I feel like the Senate matters more right now. I don't know why. What do you think? House or Senate, which one's more important? And while you're at it, do you want to give me a quick rundown on what the difference is?
So, rundown first for anyone who's not 100%. So, the U.S.
Thank you, Yeti. That is the song.
Has a very strong separation of powers. And a very strong legislative separation of powers. So the House and the Senate collectively are the legislature. The House can do popular things, if that you will. Budget bills have to start from the House. Tax bills have to start from the House. And the House has to vote yes for anything to happen. When they vote yes, it goes to the Senate. The Senate has to also vote yes, or they can vote to amend the bill, put suggestions in, and then send it back to the House. Anything that's not a tax or budget bill can start in the Senate as well, so the Senate can just create legislation and pass it there. But the Senate has extra powers in that they are required to approve international treaties and, really importantly, judicial appointments. So, in the current circumstance in the U.S., especially since the Supreme Court is full of old judges, like, unfortunately, some old judges like Clarence Thomas. Wow, that was hard to say.
My favorite justice is Terrence Columbus.
Clarence Thomas is getting quite old now, so... And there's a couple Democrat judges, I can't think of their names, who are also quite old. Alito is as well.
I don't know. Clarence Thomas looks like he could go for another 50 years without breaking a sweat.
sure, he could go on for quite a bit of time, but they're getting up there in age. So control of the Senate for the next 10 years is always going to be way more important because Supreme Court justices matter more. And especially since the Supreme Court in 2000, I can't remember the year, but when they passed the Affordable Care Act, the Supreme Court, John Roberts was like, yeah, no, you can totally make tax bills in the Senate as long as you call them fees, not taxes. So, powerful judicial philosophy of John Roberts, the Chief Justice, saying compulsory fees are not taxes.
John Roberts. John Roberts needs to stop.
Let's check in.
What
Rhode
a
Island
useless
too.
fucking justice. So, Senate-wise, we can see that the House is going to be an absolute smackdown for the Republicans. What is the Senate looking like?
So, the Senate minimum should be a tie. There's no good scenarios the Democrats win the House or win the Senate, because to win the Senate, they need to win Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Georgia, Arizona, and either Nevada or Wisconsin, or I suppose North Carolina. So they need to win 5 of those 8. Is that 8? That's 7. 5 of those 7. And the Republicans need to win 1 of those 7, or 3 of those 7. So we're talking extremely unlikely here, because most of these races are favoring the Republicans. Actually, of all the 7 I just named, they're all favoring the Republicans. So the Democrats have to win 5 times against the odds, which is just extremely unlikely. Yeah, mash, if you don't have 60 in the Senate, barring a few niche circumstances, such as Supreme Court justices, you can filibuster. So there's a couple of ones, like you can do, I believe the Senate is allowed to approve House bills with a simple majority, but they can't make their own bills without a 60-seat majority, or people defecting across aisle, I suppose.
Yeah, so the Democrats have 60 seats right now, don't they?
No, they have 50 on the dot.
I mean, before tonight,
Yeah.
yesterday, what did they have?
They had 50 on the dot.
So how is NBC saying they had a 50-50 majority?
They had 50 seats, and the Republicans 50 seats.
Oh, there's only 100 Senate seats?
Yep, 2 per state.
Oh, so why is 60 the magic number?
Because they have a special rule in the Senate called cloture, and you need 60 people to vote for cloture to end debate. Debate does not end until you have 60 people say yes, debate ends.
Oh, Christ, that's a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that sounds like Parliament.
Well, Parliament, you just need a simple majority to end vote, but Senate, because it's supposed to represent the states of America and not the people of America, you need to have higher consensus to get stuff done. That's the philosophy. But though they have been reducing the Senate filibuster over time. Originally, the Senate filibuster was really weird in that it was infinite and it could always happen, but you had to continuously filibuster.
So,
So there was
what
one.
does that mean?
There was one great moment in, great in like, I don't know what sense is, but like not great as in like good, but great as in like interesting. Moment in when they're trying to pass the Civil Rights Act in the U.S., where Strom Thurmond did, I believe, a 65-hour filibuster. He literally spoke for 65 hours straight to delay the bill.
Holy shit! How did he not die?
They allowed him to take breaks to eat and use the bathroom.
What was he saying?
I don't know.
Just anything and everything?
In the past, you occasionally had filibusters before they changed it, where people would like read the phone book. So they just read every single name in the phone book. Be like, Timothy Allen, 902-4444-4444.
Oh my god, I love American politics. That's fantastic. Okay, so Rocco's saying 66 seats in the Senate will. Apparently, that's enough for an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Is that true?
You also need the House and the President and three-quarters of the states. So
Fun fact, though, you actually don't need any of that if you have a convention of states.
that's also possible. Mash. In general, if you can only have one majority for the Republicans right now, Senate's better. But if they could have, I can't remember the number it is. I think it's 2/3 of the House, which is almost impossible. But if they could have 2/3 of the House, that would also be really powerful because then they can override Biden's vetoes and do whatever legislatively they want.
Do you think that that's possible?
No. But if they could do it, that would be great for them.
Has that ever happened?
Yes. There was a very, very long time in the US where the Democrats just completely dominated Congress. Like, not
Wow,
even
and they
close.
fucked up this bad.
Yeah. It's actually only 287 seats to have that 66 majority, but, you know, it's...
Okay, so I'm sorry, I need to interrupt. To clarify for me and anyone else who might be fuzzy out there, Congress and the House, are these the same?
Technically, no. House is the popular vote, or is like our parliament. Congress refers to both the House and Senate. But most people use Congress and House interchangeably, but technically that's wrong.
Okay, see guys, you can have functional relationships between people with very different backgrounds. I don't know anything about any of this, and my boyfriend runs a polling channel. But we're doing okay. But nobody should be worried about asking silly questions because I assure you my questions will be sillier than yours.
Well, keep in mind on that note that fields of knowledge are not actually the important thing for a solid, healthy relationship. It's values.
Yeah, that's true. We're pretty close. Well, we kind of cheated in that regard, though, because we started dating when we were teenagers, and
Well,
we kind
maybe
of
you
like
should start-
developed our values together.
Maybe you should start dating when you're young.
Maybe it seems to work out here. GOP could get 66% in the House in 2024. What do you think about that?
That's still going to be really hard. America's very... Because the House is... Every seat is up every election, so... The U.S. is, like, pretty polarized at this point, so I don't really think it's... I'd be skeptical. It is only 287, but I would be skeptical.
There are no stupid questions, but there are a lot of inquisitive idiots. Like me, some guy. That's just like me.
And for those at home curious, the Democrats had a constitutional amendment proof or majority through 1931 to 1941. And also, they held the House at above 60% almost continuously from 1953 to 1997.
God damn.
40
Look
years.
how much they did with that.
Made America worse.
Yeah. So, I meant to ask this earlier, but it slipped my mind, but I remember now. Do you think in this election and in 2024, do you think there's going to be a significant number of like Gen Z that weren't old enough to vote in 2020 but are becoming old enough to vote like this year and in 2024? Do you think there would be a meaningful amount of them to start to turn things red?
Possibly.
Like, I think that's something that people aren't really considering. It might not be everybody's minds changing. It might be adding red, Republican voters to the voter pool just because the Zoomers are aging up,
And keep in mind, there's two big things with that. The millennials are getting older, so you're going to have some of them are just objectively dying, reducing their voter share.
Wait, how fucking old are millennials now?
Generally speaking, 25 to 40-ish.
Well,
So-
judging by how some of them live their lives, some of them have probably already died of HIV.
So some of them are going to start dying relatively high volumes soon, in the next 4 years or so. Like, we're not talking like millions, but they're going to start dying at a much noticeable rate because 20 to 30s, you're the least deaths, if you will. And then as you get older, you start dying faster. And as people get older, they get more conservative. As life hits you in the face, you get more fiscally conservative, almost always. And you might get more socially conservative, because that happens when you have children.
Mash is asking, what will change in policy after tonight? Gas prices, oil production, Ukraine funding, etc. with your predicted results. So, if your prediction is right, what do you think policy-wise will change?
Frankly, the GOP is going to try to pass a bunch of bills, and Biden will veto them all, so nothing. But what they can do
if they're smart, they'll try, because oftentimes they don't try.
Yes. What they can do that Biden can't veto is they can do a bunch of investigations, like into Hunter Biden, into other stuff that I can't think of off the top of my head.
I think they should do some completely frivolous impeachments, just like the Democrats.
They could
I would
also
like to watch that show.
They could also straight up just 25th Amendment Biden and impeach Kamala, because Kamala's clearly incompetent. Like,
oh my God!
Biden
I hope they need to keep her there. She's cracking me up. She's fantastic.
Biden has the excuse that he's old with Alzheimer's. Kamala's just.
Oh, Chris, they've called Colorado.
44% reporting. I think that's a bit aggressive on my end. I wouldn't call it, but Bennett does have a 20-point lead, but I think that's probably, again, still the early vote being counted, and it's going to probably progressively get redder.
Majora says, no way, they'll put Kamala in a peach?
I mean, that would be funny. Could you imagine? Did you ever read, like, James and the Giant Peach as a kid?
Of course I did. I'd be in a peach. It sounds fun. No, I love Kamala. She's a fucking idiot, and I love her to death. I love listening to her.
She had a great speech the other day where she's talking about how everyone loved yellow school buses, and then everyone is basically like, everyone who's in a yellow school bus hates the yellow school bus. No one wants to be on it.
Oh yeah, she's really, really excited about electric school buses, guys.
That don't work.
Wait, whoa! CNN throwing shade. Holy shit! They called the election in Maryland for the Democrat. And they said, oh, he beats election denier, whatever the Republican's name was. It's like, guys, relax. You guys are supposed to pretend to be nonpartisan tonight. Come on.
Especially since their new CEO is firing everyone who has any history of partisan tilt here.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, he's fired Jake Tapper, a bunch of other guys too. I can't think of their names. I don't watch CNN. I
didn't know that CNN changed its leadership.
It was bought out by Discovery.
Discovery bought CNN?
Yes.
What the fuck? And they can't put How It's Made back on?
They had to spend their money on How It's Made to buy CNN.
They should turn CNN into the 24-hour How It's Made channel. I bet they would get more viewers. That's not even ironic. They probably would.
Still has no counts, and it's really interesting seeing a bunch of people right now hypothesizing or talking about how the Democrats are doing so good.
Incumbent Democrat right now holding on to a.
I won't have CNN talk over me, but the Democrats are talking about the red mirage here, but I think we have the exact opposite. Pretty much all of these states, as soon as the polls open, are blue and then become red.
Rocco, that's inappropriate. Excuse me. Some guy says, I want to see someone on CNN get fired live. I would love to see that. Didn't Don Lemon get taken off his show and put on something else, or did I make that up?
He got put onto a morning show, and it's like the cringiest, soulless thing ever, if you've ever watched clips of it. Like, he's wearing like a blazer, but it's open.
Yeah, they're at like a table, aren't they? Like they're in a cafe or something.
And he's acting like... you can tell he's just so fake. Watching that.
Yeah, on his old show, he was actually kind of genuine. He was just genuinely awful. Whoa, CNN, first lesbian in the country. Who's that?
What?
I assume they mean the first lesbian either Senate seat or governor, but they just said the first lesbian in America, so I guess they've got the first lesbian in America on there somewhere. America
with lesbians? Oh my god. This is revolutionary.
The very first one, potentially the only one. Although, no, isn't Corinne Jean-Pierre supposed to be a lesbian?
Is she?
Oh, that's why she got hired for being like a Haitian lesbian or something, didn't she?
I know she got hired for being a minority, but I didn't realize she was also the
Yeah,
LGBT.
she's a Haitian. She's a Haitian lesbian. That's why people call her diversity hire.
I mean, that's pretty peak diverse. Like, what more could she be? Like, Islamic? A
Who
Jew?
knows? She might be.
What
but-
has more? What's it called? Oppression points these days? Is it the Jews or is it the Islams? Muslims?
Oh my God! Always the Muslims. The Democrats hate Jews half the time.
Apparently, all the Jews in New York are going to vote for Zeldin, or like most of them.
That's
Republican.
which side?
They're Republican.
Ha. That's okay, Rocco. When has a morning show ever not been cringy? Hey, some morning shows are fun. They're just women television, so it makes it look cringy.
Women are cringy. Heard it here,
But-
folks.
But yeah, Corinne Jean-Pierre is also someone that I hope stays around for a long time because she's somehow worse than Jen Psaki. Have you heard much from her? Because she's a sight to behold when she's
Jen
talking.
Psaki was actually good at her job. It's just trying to be the press secretary for an Alzheimer's patient makes
I'm
you
gonna
look
push back
dumb.
on that. I don't think she was that good at her job because maybe this is only something that women can see. But when Jen Psaki gets up at the podium, she is on the defense from the very first second. Like you can just tell you can tell she's on the back foot the whole time, and it's not a good look for a presidential press secretary, right? Compare with like the lady that was Trump's press secretary, whose name I forget. Like she was on top of things all the time. Like she was never on the defense. She was confident. She was feeling good. Jen Psaki was on the back foot from the moment she got in there. Like it was not a good look for that administration at all. Corinne Jean-Pierre's not on the back foot. She's just not even really in the conversation. I don't think she really knows what's going on. She sounds like kind of an idiot.
Yeah, I'll allow that. Oop, don't want that for a second, sorry. Just checking my stuff. My numbers.
Ooh, Nevada's closing soon.
Is Nevada the one that has the most money to be made by you other than New Hampshire? If
Actually, let me check my bets. New Hampshire's definitely the biggest one, but I've got another decently sized one. Let me find it.
the Rocco, the White House is a seniors. Actually, that's not correct because Biden never stays in the White House.
Didn't he build like a fake White House set?
He works mostly at his house, so he's almost never in DC. So fact checked false. It's
At
not.
his house in
It's
Delaware?
not a senior home. His senior home is his home.
Well, didn't his dog like bite a bunch of White House staff?
Maybe. Would you be surprised if this man abuses his dog?
I mean, I think the poor thing was just old and senile, just like Joe Biden is.
I bet Joe Biden abuses his dog just like other people in his house.
I hope not. That would make me sad.
Have you seen this like leaks from his daughter's diary or Joe Biden
Oh,
or
God.
Hunter Biden's laptop?
Oh, by the way, my other top bid is Arizona. I need Arizona to go Republican
Well-
in the Senate.
Bad news, there's 0 people voting in Arizona. It's the first time in an election that no one ever voted.
God damn it. They wanted to cost me money.
Could you imagine if you had an election and literally no one voted? Not even the candidates voted.
Oh yeah, I got to observe an interesting phenomenon. So there's a huge problem, obviously, with polling leaning Democrat, right? That's like a lot of the correcting that you do. I know it's not everything, but I don't know how your model works. This shit is way over my head. But when I was putting money on some of these states, I noticed that the odds on the bookie sites were a lot closer to your predictions. And you say that people do reference like bookie odds for a bit more of an accurate picture of who's going to win an election. Isn't that true?
Yeah. Because the thing is, a lot of the polls and forecasts you see are, for lack of, to steal their words, actually disinformation. They are trying to push voters or to suppress voter turnout. Whereas the bookie odds are based on actual fundamentals because money's on the line, But when has New York Times ever lost money based on the election results? Or when has 538 ever went out of business because it's bad at its job?
With that in mind, I'm kind of surprised that more independent news people don't reference bookie odds for how elections are looking.
A lot of the... It's embarrassing. Like, you'll see people, like, at the Daily Wire, like, Tim Pool reference 538 as, like, it means anything. You might as well go to, like, your local psychic and ask them what... If Venus is in retrograde, will the Russians invade Japan? Like...
Yeah, if your prediction goes well tonight, I'm gonna start just like emailing people that I follow, like, hey, stop using 538. Here's someone better.
I'm really hoping this is the most stressful part about doing this. Is all of the you're just sitting here helpless, being like, what's gonna go on? Because if I'm wrong in a way that I can't justify, that's really bad for my credibility. But there's no way I can really do anything about it. I'm just sitting here helpless, and hoping that my assumptions and my modeling is correct.
Just take solace in the fact that you don't actually need to be accurate. You just need to be more accurate than Nate Silver.
That's like saying you don't actually need to be good at running. You just have to be better than the cripple.
Yeah, you don't need to outrun the bear. You need to outrun your buddy. It's the same thing. Some guy says, I find it hard to trust any poll that doesn't have a dancer on it.
I think, honestly, would our government run much worse if it was just run by pole dancers?
I mean, Kamala Harris is kind of like that.
She did dance up a lot of poles to get where she is.
All right, if you want to throw up the CNN coverage, I'm just going to be right back for a couple of minutes, okay?
Okay. I have an ad. Commercial break in progress. Everyone notice CNN's commercial.
It's past that now. You gotta go live again.
Why does this always do this? Whenever I tab away from this tab, it freezes.
Competitive seats total. That is the state of play as of now,
yeah,
especially
BRB.
as those early
CNN's
votes
website
are
is not very
tabulated.
good.
Just minutes from now, at 10 p.m. Eastern, polls are going to close in Nevada, in Utah, and Montana. Both
are we
parties
excited,
aim
everyone?
for the magic number of 218.
Nevada's closing. This is the last really interesting state closing here.
11 House seats are at stake in
Utah and
Florida.
Montana are probably going to go all red, so that's not that exciting. Nevada, though, that's interesting.
Next round of poll closings. Turning to the battle for the U.S. Senate, it really could all come down to Nevada. Incumbent Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, the first Latina U.S. Senator ever, is also one of the most vulnerable Democrats in the U.S. Senate. She faces a strong challenge by the former State Attorney General, Republican Adam Laxalt. In the Utah...
Give it up to CNN for calling out that the only definable trait of their candidate in Nevada is their race. Wow, you can't say anything else about Mastro? You can't be like, she did this or that, or she's had this record. Nah, it's just she's a Latino. That's all that matters. Not anything else about her. This race reductivism. Really, really irritating. So they're gonna just talk about poll closing stuff here, so that's not anything really interesting to joke on or riff off. They're not super interesting. Yeah, there's been a lot of issues in Arizona today. There was, in Maricopa County, the biggest county in Arizona, I believe, it's close to half the population, I believe, lives there. They had up to 20% of the precincts have voting machines break. That's just embarrassing. How could you possibly have that many machines break? That's just dumb. Like, what's wrong with you? So, because of that, I don't think Maricopa County is going to be done tonight at all. Like, I think I'm going to probably have to close the stream before we have any meaningful results from Maricopa. And we go in here, like the rest of these counties, we won't know who's going to win. Because there's probably about 1 million votes from Maricopa itself. So we're going to have probably, like, what is that math? Close to 2/3. Not 2/3, 1/3. That's more than, like, 40% of all votes will probably not get counted tonight. So
I'm here,
in
by the
Arizona. So that's pretty bad. But what we can do about that? And just as an update
All right.
overall about some of these races, Georgia's pretty much top done. Wow. Kemp has won pretty much decisively at this point. He's up 76% in. And if you go in and actually look at what's left, you have Walton County, which I think leans blue, and Sumter, which is kind of a toss-up, but Coffee, which is a hilarious name, by the way. Banks and Lumpkin, I believe, are all... Oh, and...
Lumpkin?
Peach.
That's great.
I think Peach as well. All tend to vote Republican, so this should probably... The exact margin might change a little bit, but it shouldn't change here. So Georgia's pretty much done. Texas, only 58%, but again, I think it's probably going to stay... Greg Abbott might actually gain vote share. And I just also like to point out here, Abbott's only up about +7. DeSantis is up +20. Not a swing state, folks.
Not a swing state, folks.
Context. Alabama's
Sorry about that.
only 34. South Carolina, safe South Carolina, only 16. Tennessee, +37. Actually, that's pretty bad. That's pretty good. Arkansas, only +17. Oklahoma, only +17 as well. Florida's not a swing state anymore.
Hopefully it stays that way.
And you might be like, but Vermont is up +50 for the Republicans. Yeah, but you then compare this with Senate, and it's a similar margin for Rubio. He's +16. That's, again, other than the Dakotas and some of these other really deep red states like South Carolina or Indiana or Kentucky, Florida's in a comparable margin with those guys. And you look at the House seats, Florida's at 20-6 for House seats. Florida's not a swing state. This is a big story that I don't think people are going to be talking much about. Florida's not swing. And people are going to still talk about...
predict that heavy of a change? Sorry.
No. If we go back here, and I do all the proper things so you can see it properly, I only had Florida 18-10 for House seats. So they did 2 better than I did. I forecast.
So, if you didn't forecast that, then pretty much nobody forecast that, right?
Nobody forecast that. Florida's better than anyone forecast. Full stop.
Based. And they're completely done now? Are they completely done?
They're at 92%.
Based. Oh, man. If that doesn't make headlines tomorrow morning, you know they're intentionally ignoring it.
One thing that's worth noting here, too. So, Sununu is up about 7 here. 36% in. And we go to Senate. Bulldog is down about 17, let's say. Again, 36% in.
Wait, New Hampshire, for the Senate, they're up. No, they're not up. Fuck.
Well, we have to keep in mind here. This is a big one. Sununu has been polling around +17 to 20. So what we should expect here is minimum. Sununu is probably going to gain 7 or 13 percentage points. And that will likely mean Bulldog gaining 13. So minimum here, we should be looking at a very close race where it's like 2 or 3 points lead for Hassan. But it might go more because, again, you look at here, a lot of places around Manchester and Concord have reported, not a lot of the other areas, which tend to be more red in New Hampshire. So this could swing harder than it looks. And it wouldn't be the first time either. Florida's way redder than I thought it was going to be. So New Hampshire being redder than I thought is a very distinct possibility. And just update, Walker's back and lead in Georgia, but they're both solidly below 50, so this is going to go to runoff probably. At 76% in.
Boo, runoff.
J.D. Vance is now at +8 in Ohio, which everyone should have expected. Ohio is a MAGA state. MAGA candidates will always win Ohio. Full stop.
Was Vance the one that you told me that if you were wrong about him winning, you would end your career?
Yes. I would full up. If he loses, I'm gonna just delete the channel. I'm done. All my intuition is wrong. My knowledge is wrong. My models are wrong.
Just quit while you're ahead.
Yeah. Walker tonight might, because again, we look here. Coffee, Sumter, Banks, Stevens, and Lumpkin are all Republican-leaning counties, and Walton, I think, is kind of a quote-unquote in-between county, if it's the one I'm thinking of. And it depends a little bit, too. Some of these have high reporting. There's a lot of still... In Atlanta still has a lot of counties to go, so... Hard to say. It is possible, by all means, but Georgia's gonna be a nail-biter. Legit
And they're going to drag it out as long as they can.
Legit hack source. I don't think this channel is going to get deleted because, well, good luck with it. The Democrats coming back from this. Athens, Franklin, Montgomery. Some of these still have a lot of vote to go, but again, a lot of these also have a lot. Not as much. The rural counties count faster. But some of these, like Lucas and Mahoning and Trumbull, likely will be very close overall. Same with Montgomery over here. So, Ryan's not coming back. Ohio is a MAGA state. Trump won Ohio by overperforming the polls by like 8 points. Also, Rocco, by all means, if you're sick, you don't have to stay up. Go to bed, get rested, get better, make sure you eat good food, drink a lot, don't push yourself. There's no point in overstressing.
I am also sick, and I'm going to try to stick it out as long as I can, but I'm not going to hesitate to go to bed when I'm feeling gross either.
Let's see. Nevada just closed. Do we have any polls yet? No. Of course they don't. Still 0 from Arizona. We have some coming in from New Mexico. What's been counted so far in New Mexico? Albuquerque hasn't reported yet, but Santa Fe's heavily reported. So we'll see here. New Mexico was something to keep an eye out because Rochetti and Grisham were pretty close near the end of the polling. But it's hard to say here. A lot of these are starting to go the way I'm thinking. Oh, Iowa, that's a pretty low turnout so far. Never mind. Counting so far. Kansas is an interesting one here. I kind of suspect Kelly was probably going to win. And she's doing pretty good. There's 52% counted. But you look at this in detail, a lot of the Democrat areas around right here have already counted a lot. I'm not sure how big a lot of these counties are. So we could be seeing, as this ticks over, that this might get closer, but I don't think there's enough votes outstanding for Schmidt to come back here. Again, we'll keep an eye on this one.
Georgia is 77% done, and it looks like it's trending Republican again for the governor.
Georgia?
Yeah, and it's like a dead tie for Senate right now.
Yeah.
According to CNN.
It is a dead tie. We're talking about 3,000 votes. Update on Pennsylvania here. We're at 41% counted here. And, well... Luzerne is kind of a swing county, but Perry, Clearfield, Potter, and Cameron are all red counties that have 0 counts in. Erie is a swing county here, and a lot of these ones in Philadelphia are very low reports, so it's hard to say right now. It is going to likely continue to slide more to Oz. Will it be enough? We'll keep an eye on it. The polls say it should be, though, so...
I'm sorry, I just need to interrupt you because Adam on Twitter is saying Fetterman leads by 5% in Pennsylvania right now, hoping he can win. Like his policy, need another strong progressive voice in the Senate. How strong of a voice do you think Fetterman is?
Very strong. He is the first gibberish candidate.
That's true. He's speaking a language that a lot of Democrats speak that not a lot of candidates really cater to.
The other a really contentious race here in Wisconsin, just to highlight, because I haven't really highlighted it yet. We now have enough votes counted for it to be relevant to talk about. My models have Mitchell's winning by 0.1. So this is going to probably be extremely close. Right now, Everest does have a slight advantage, but that's because you look at places like Milwaukee and Madison area are relatively high counted, whereas some of the more Republican areas like Kenosha and Walworth and a lot of these rural areas don't have as much purported in yet. So this will close, and it's close enough that we could see narrow eke out, but it's kind of hard to say for now. And we're also kind of seeing that in the Senate, though to a much lesser degree, because Johnson is the incumbent, so he's, by definition, tends to be more popular or have an advantage. So Johnson looks like a shoo-in at this point, 37% in, only down 4. Again, with the same distribution of county seats not open or not counted. So this one looks pretty safe to the GOP right now. Still keep an eye on things.
Twitter's giving me something to think about. How much of Florida's new status as a red state do you think is from people changing their minds because the Democrats are crazy and because Ron DeSantis is awesome? And how much do you think is because of Republicans from elsewhere in the country moving there?
Well, this is going to be the best way to say it. The governor race. So we're going to pop here. So, southern Florida is people changing their minds. The rest of Florida is probably immigration from the rest of the U.S. So Miami, for example, Miami-Dade, that's people changing their mind. This was plus 30D in 2020, or 2018, sorry. This is now plus 12R. That's a 42% swing.
That's fucking crazy.
So southern Florida is people flipping affiliations. You don't see this kind of thing happen just because, like, this happens because people flipped affiliations here.
Jesus, Miami-Dade should be making everybody's headlines. That's insane.
Yep. Sorry, it's plus 20.
Okay.
But plus 20.
Jesus.
But still, plus 20 to plus 15. That's a 35% swing in 4 years.
That's, like, unheard of.
Mm-hmm. And I will note here, quite interestingly, 94.7% reported. DeSantis has gained about 80, 90,000 votes. The Democrats have lost, just comparing this, almost 200,000 votes. So a lot of this is Democrats have just given up, it looks like. Now you could say, wave this, or it might be a wave, or that 2018 was a Democrat wave, but that's a very big swing. Like, Democrat wave to Republican wave, you shouldn't expect that much. And if you go to 2020 election in Florida, I think it's a similar margin Miami-Dade. Bear with me as I check this. Just check in. Miami-Dade was... What is the math here? Okay. Even in 2020, without a Democrat wave here, we had... It was D plus 7 in 2020. So even from that to this is still a 22-point swing. That's still huge. We cannot emphasize this. This should be big news anywhere. Anyone not talking about that has an agenda. Just saying.
Brief interruption from Twitter. Reese on Twitter says, the fact of the matter is that Democrats may lose a chamber, but you aren't going to hear conspiracies spouted about how the election was stolen. That is the biggest takeaway you should remember here. Hashtag midterms 2022. I think we should ask Stacey Abrams about that, don't you?
Maybe. No. Surely she's never complained about an election being stolen before.
Maybe we should ask Hillary, who I think is still claiming that 2016 was bogus.
Or Al Gore, Mr. Climate Activist himself, still claims that 2020 was stolen by the Supreme Court. Or 2000, sorry.
What? Huh? How does that work?
The Supreme Court decided that voting should be... They did so Florida was too close to call, so they did a recount. And it was still really close. They asked for a second recount. And the courts were like, Lamau? No?
We keep counting these votes, and they keep not being the result we want.
Yeah. So, sure, you could say because of Jeb Bush, but the ballots were the ballots, and it's still... I personally don't actually think it's that big of an issue to complain about the process of an election or what's being done in an election or how things are done. The Democrats are the ones who hate that. I don't actually have a problem with Gore being upset about Florida. I do have a problem with the Democrats saying that anyone who had doubts about 2020 is an election denier and they should be allowed to speak or be voted for.
Oh my goodness. Jason on Twitter says, question for Americans. Why are MAGA people mad about candidates who support lower costs for things like insulin? I'm sorry? Wasn't it Trump that specifically made insulin cheaper? Or am I remembering this wrong?
He passed an executive order that required... I can't remember how it exactly worked, but it was going to require drug companies to give the U.S. the same price as any other country they sell in. So, like, you can't price the drug higher in the U.S. than Canada, for example, if you wanted to sell drug in both.
Yeah, and then Joe Biden overturned it with executive order, didn't he?
Yes, and then he re-implemented that last year, effectively.
Oh my fucking god. He's not even pretending.
No, not at all.
I wish they would at least pretend.
Unsurprisingly, Chuck Schumer does not look like he's going to lose here, but only 29% in. Gonna zoom in on the gubernatorial race in New York here. 30% in, so this is still looking like it's the early votes being counted for now. Because a lot of the U.S. states switched to counting the early votes first and then the election day votes, so they could speed up counting. Which was a good idea, by the way. I don't like the fact they allow early votes and early mail-in ballots, but if you're going to have it, at least do this way, because then you can have it counted in time. So, Hullock has a 30% lead right now, but I think this is going to shrink. Is it going to shrink 30 points? I don't think so. There's a lot of hopium for Zeldin, but I don't think it's going to come true, guys. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Though,
Okay, I'm sorry. Florida, DeSantis is making like a, he made a little speech, I guess, when he got called as winning the governor race. And he did like a rehash of the Churchill speech, but about Florida and wokeness. And he says, Florida is where woke goes to die. I love this man.
yeah? He's cool.
Oh, so good.
Just on a slight digression here, do we have numbers for this yet? No. There is a pretty big by-election going on in Alberta right now for a Brooks Medicine hat. So just as a digression for Canadians in the audience, which I think is a large percentage of the audience for this video, at least live right now.
Wait, what happened with Canadians in the audience? What? I'm sorry.
Brooks Medicine hat polls have closed for a bit now, and it's a big...
Oh, thank goodness.
It is a big by-election in Alberta because Danielle Smith is running in that by-election.
Oh, she's the one that basically had Wexit, right?
No.
Oh, fuck, who was that?
She's the new premier of Alberta. That's what you're thinking.
Who's the one that had like the Wexit legislation that she backed down on like a bitch?
No, she didn't back. She has like the Alberta Sovereignty Act.
That is her though.
Yes.
Okay, I'm remembering correctly.
She didn't
Cool.
back down on it.
But she backtracked on it a little bit.
No, I think that was just misreporting in the media. Because it did sound like that at first, but at this point it doesn't look like that's the case. I'm trying to see what the results are right now, but doesn't seem to be anything online about it that I can see. So maybe there's not any results reported or that, or I'm just bad at Googling for once. But back to US, because that is the main story of the night. Let's see where we are here. I wouldn't call Josh Shapiro this early. I know people are calling it, but that... He's up 15. Let's see, what's the counting in Philadelphia look like? It's pretty low. So maybe that is a fair call. Oof.
Yeah, she is leaning Western separatism. I support separatism for everybody.
Not quite though, right? People like you shouldn't confuse actual separatism with asserting provincial sovereignty, because the provinces are sovereign.
She basically made Alberta like a sanctuary province, but like for everything.
Well,
didn't
if
she?
her law passes.
Yeah, that's what the point of it was. Like basically, no provincial resources for the feds for anything.
Yep.
Based.
Georgia's still razor sharp. North Carolina's ticking forward. Let's see, what is still counting in North Carolina? A lot of stuff here. Though I would say North Carolina's pretty safe at this point. Wisconsin's going that way. Ohio's a done deal at this point. Iowa's going this way, but that shouldn't surprise you. So right now, if we assume Oz doesn't make up this remaining 4.6 points, doing the math correct here, then we still are likely looking at the GOP winning the Senate, because Georgia looks... So not Georgia. Nevada, by all polling, should go Republican. But again... And Georgia looks like it should as well. That is, even the runoff typically doesn't favor the incumbent. And it's close, yes. But we're still there. New Hampshire is still far too early to even attempt to call, so it's hard to say anywhere here. And frankly, Pennsylvania is too. But again, you look at the numbers in Delaware, or sorry, Philadelphia, so that's not a lot. So what you might be seeing here, now we're getting a better picture, is the Senate might be closer than, or might be like closer to 52 range. Not entirely certain as of now. And actually the poll in chat is pretty close to 52 here. We'll see as time keeps progressing here, but it's looking like there might be a Democrat flip in Pennsylvania and a Republican flip in Nevada and Georgia. So that'd be 51. And Arizona and New Hampshire are too close to are uncallable right now.
There's a bit of Democrat coping on Twitter.
Oh?
Rama's screen says... And what's funny is he never once mentions that he's talking about Democrats, but you just know, right? He says, there are more of us than there are of them. The problem is there are more of them turning out to vote than there are of us. We should turn election day into a holiday so people don't feel the fear of getting fired from skipping work if they go vote. Okay. Can any Americans inform me if there are any in the chat? In Canada, your employer has to give you like a certain number of hours off on election day to go vote. Is that not true in the States? I find it very, very hard to believe that anyone's actually getting fired if they're going to vote. But yeah, we got some seething and some coping, and it's very nice.
I would also imagine too that even if you don't have legislative time off to go vote, I can't imagine an employer wanting to do that because you probably get such bad publicity if you did fire someone like that for that reason.
I mean, I don't know how strong like worker protection is in the States. I assume probably quite. Maybe not to the level it is in Canada, but maybe it is. I'm not really sure. But I can't imagine that you could fire someone, assuming that this person wasn't like an existing shitbird who missed work all the time for other stupid reasons. But even still, if the last straw was on election day, I feel like you wouldn't stand up to a lawsuit if you fired that person for going to vote. I would be shocked.
Yeah.
Stephen King is coping. Stephen King says, I don't care what you do with the blue check as long as you vote blue. Stephen King, famous for his horror novels often involving orgies involving children, fun fact.
Which is really weird and creepy.
Yeah, it's weird how often sex and children come up in the same pages of his books, and I kind of avoid him for that reason. I mean, Stephen King has some bangers, but he has a lot of weird shit, too.
Who pointed out to me that this will be the first time since Reconstruction.
I'd like to point out here,
Florida won't have any
CNN is saying that Ohio is too close to call, with 71% reporting, and J.D. Vance up, what is this, plus, almost plus 8? Guys, it's not.
the Republican Party tonight about what he's capable of.
The Republicans have definitely won
up and down
Ohio.
Among the Hispanic counties where they have a lot of Hispanic votes, suburban voters, rural voters. And you talk about building a coalition to run a presidential campaign that could win. That's the message that DeSantis sent tonight. So to me, for 2024 implications, this crush, because if the rest of the country is a little bit more muddled and Florida crushes, think about the political message that sends about what should this party do.
I was going to say, sitting across the state at Mar-a-Lago. Right?
Sorry for the dead air. I'm still evaluating seething on Twitter.
It is interesting now that we're actually seeing the CNN is stopped talking about random counties in Georgia, and they're now talking about how DeSantis has completely crushed Florida here. 20 percentage point margin. That is comparable to places like Arkansas, Oklahoma, not Alabama, or other places that you would consider Republican states, like South Dakota again. So Florida, not a swing state. Michigan is 23% in here. Detroit's still not reported at all, though, so it really depends on what the actual turnout in Detroit is here. If Detroit's turnout is low, Dixon could win. If it's high, or even medium, I think it's probably going Whitmer here, so it depends there. I've not really read many Stephen King's books, so I'm not a big fan of the horror genre in books myself.
I mean, he wrote The Shawshank Redemption. That was pretty good.
Is that him?
I think so. Fuck. Well, now I have to check.
You guys are going to have to excuse me one moment. I'll be back in a jiffy. Apologize for any dead air in the meantime.
It was written by Stephen King. Yeah, Stephen King, to me, he's just written, like, too many books. There's no way that you've written, like, almost 100 books and, like, most of them have got to be subpar. He also wrote Misery, didn't he? Like, he's written a lot of good books. I'll give him that. He's fucking crazy. And I'm very sus of him because of, like, a weirdly critical mass of his books having weirdly sexual scenes with children. Not so into that. And yeah, I'm not hugely into horror. Not his style of horror. I'm more of a slasher person. I've been getting into like classic slashers like the original Halloween, the original Scream. Chris and I watched the original Scream this Halloween. And yeah, I'm not going to be talking politics while he's gone because I don't understand anything as well as he does, or even close. I know that they care a lot about this Georgia Senate election that he did not leave up when he left, so I can't show you guys.
Okay.
But yeah, I was telling them about my taste in horror for classic slashers. Oh my god! Didn't Lovecraft name his cat something horribly racist
Possibly?
that I can't even repeat on YouTube? Oh, that man's hilarious.
I do not know personally. Oh, Detroit started to count here. In Michigan.
I'm Googling Lovecraft's cat name. Hang on.
It's quite interesting, though not unsurprising in the slightest.
Yeah, I can't repeat that name, but that's hilarious.
How heavily voting correlates with urbanicity. I think that might be the biggest single predictor of voting. And it's interesting. That's not necessarily intuitive by itself, but if you think about it on the several levels through here, not just this surface level, but you go deeper, there is actually a very good reason why this is the case. And the best way I've heard this described before, I'll give credit to Simple here, described it quite well. So everyone has like a bubble of personal space. And as your bubble hits someone else's bubble of personal space, well, they stop. Your bubble and their bubble, they're both reduced. If there is nobody else in the world, the whole world is your personal space. As you get more and more people, the smaller your bubble is. And the closer you are, the smaller still. Everybody, if you have 100 people living in an apartment building and 700 square foot apartments, you can't do things like play the drums, be really loud in general. You can't really have a party. You can't really have any friends over. You can't even really live in your apartment because your apartment's so small. So your personal space and your private life are really restricted and tiny. And what this causes is this over-reliance on government solutions to fix social problems because you can't just ignore them. When you live in a farm and your neighbor's 100, 200, 500,000 meters away from you, your nearest neighbor, what they're doing doesn't really bother you. When your nearest neighbor is on the other side of a 6-inch wall, it really does bother you.
It's worth noting as well, it's not just because you can't ignore it, but in an urban setting where there are so many strangers around you, you can't usually resolve issues interpersonally, just like between you and your neighbor. Like, if you live in a busy apartment building, you go over to your neighbor and ask them nicely to quiet down. They're probably not going to respond very well. They might, but they probably won't. They're just as likely to say fuck you and start playing the drums even louder, so you need someone to come and intervene on your behalf. And so it cultivates this feeling that the only way to get things done is for some higher power like government to do them for you instead of dealing with your problems on your own.
Yeah, and just to add to that, they're not only is it they're unlikely to listen to you, they might actually get angry at you for even having the gumption to ask them to be quiet. Because their personal space is so small, you are actively intruding upon it by just asking them a question. Whereas the other thing too, keep in mind, a lot of social problems in the world are resolved through interpersonal dialogue. So if I'm having a problem with how Lexie does something, I go talk to her and it's like, can you not do it that way? It bothers me. If some random girl down the street is doing something that bothers me, and I go up to tell her that, she's gonna think I'm an asshole. Because why should I go up to her? She'll think to herself, why are you telling me what to do? I don't even know you. Who are you? Go away.
Yeah, it's and in an urban center, you're much less likely to know your neighbors. It's very isolating actually to live in an urban center because when you're surrounded by so many people, none of them really feel like people anymore. As opposed to like if you live in a small town, you kind of know, even if you don't personally know everybody, you kind of know people, you wave to them on the road, whatever. Like nobody does that in a dense urban center. Like it's kind of like those phenomenons that you see about like 50 people in a city see a crime but nobody calls the police because everybody thinks somebody else already called, that kind of thing. You don't get as much of that in a rural area because the people around you they feel more human. People don't feel very human in cities because there's just so many of them. And that reduces, like, you can't, it's hard to work something out interpersonally with people that you have no idea who you are, that don't even necessarily feel that real to you, that you don't have their interest in mind when you're doing stuff, whatever, than it is with people that you kind of know in a smaller area that you feel like there are people around you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Also, Senate's 40-40 right now. I thought that was neat.
Let's see. NBC
Listen, guys,
says
I'm doing my best on sick brain.
Yeah,
What does
so
NBC say?
they have it at 41-41 for the Senate.
CNN's being slow.
They're now calling Pennsylvania for Shapiro. His lead is big, but I'm still not 100%. Like, yeah, Delaware County's barely reporting here, so maybe that's not a bad call. I don't know. Just feels early when it's only 56% reported.
Did DeSantis ever drop illegals in Delaware? Wasn't it rumored that he was going to do that?
It was, I think, but I don't think he ever did.
Aw, that's lame. Maybe he did, and they just kept a really tight lid on it.
It was secret, super secret.
Super secret.
So just to point out here, Brian Kemp is now outperforming my model for him. 82% in, he's outperforming. And Walker is now sitting at 49.6. And let's zoom in a bit. So Stevens and Sumter tend to be Republican-leaning counties. And a lot of these Democrat counties are well above overall counted ballots. The only big ones are DeKalb and Fulton that are below average. So in other words, we should expect that this actually might go, like, Walker should gain more momentum here. I think he might be set to win here, like outright on election night here.
This is going to make it harder for Stacey Abrams to pretend that she actually won.
Especially since I believe turnout we can double check here. So there's a turnout so far counted of 3.3 million. Let's double checking. The 2018 Georgia gubernatorial election, which was a record turnout, was 3.8 million voters. So we're at 3.3, 82% reporting. They might actually break that turnout record, which means 2 record turnouts. And she lost more this time. Mr. Beto himself is toast. He's down 10 points, 65 in. And if you look at it too, places like Houston are slightly below average reporting rate so far, but Austin and Dallas, or Dallas is slightly below too, but Austin is above. So he might gain some more momentum here, but it's not super likely. Actually, interesting.
Oh my god, look at all those districts. What happened there?
Oh, Texas has a bajillion counties.
Texas looks like a checkerboard.
One House seat to keep in mind out here is House 34. Mayra Flores won this on the... Runoff's the wrong word. the by-election, I guess. I don't think that's what the U.S. call it. In August. Right now, she's slightly down, so by 10. That's not really slightly. So we'll see if she actually can win that going forward. But this would be a pretty big upset if she actually manages to hold it here, because this is a very... Historically, the Democrats have done really well in the Rio Grande down here. There's a lot of Mexican voters here who tend to be, because Latinos as a whole tend to be more Democrat than the average population. So if she manages to hold on, that is really just portending that the Latino vote is shifting quite hard.
So, to contextualize how much of a smackdown this is in the House, how many House seats did the Republicans have before today?
213. So this is a lot of these. We're still below their current numbers, but they currently have flipped 7 so far and have only lost 2. So they're currently gaining ground, but it's not. It still remains to be seen to the margin, but a lot of these places too that aren't being colored, like we go to Iowa. Actually, they're only leading in one of these 3 that are uncalled, but they should probably all go Republican.
So they were just under, like, a controlling number for the House?
Yeah, you need 218 for a simple majority, and obviously you want more than that because in the U.S., congressmen and senators are much more willing to break party line than in Canada. In Canada, it's like almost blasphemy to break party line.
So the Democrats before had a majority in the House.
Yes.
So this is a big change for them, if you're right.
If I'm right, yeah, this would be devastation.
Beist. I love devastation.
And it is worth noting, too, the Democrats are still below 100, and a lot of their seats are from over here. My model has, like, I think 46 of their seats. Let's actually bring this up here. 48 of their seats, from my count, are coming from the Northeast, and only 59 are coming from the West here. That's not really counted. So 91, and there's only about 59 over here that they can get, so they're quite below expected at this point.
Do you think that they're going to make up any ground in those Northeast states that haven't counted yet?
Yes, but the fact that it's taking this long is probably just indicating factor that this isn't going well for them. It's not certain yet, don't get me wrong. I would not call the election here, but it is trending well so far for the Republicans and trending as well as I predicted so far. Again, I don't like to make too grandiose claims until the numbers are in, because I could still be wrong.
I don't like to make too grandiose claims, but fuck you, Nate Silver, you're an idiot.
He isn't very good at this, so... Let's see. Cincinnati's very close. That's interesting.
If anybody's interested in a circle jerk, you can go check out the live coverage on 538. It's a bunch of, like, 538 contributors congratulating themselves on helping Democrats win.
Interesting. Walsh, I still can't seem to find the actual vote results here for the Brooks Medicine Hat by-election. But if Smith had 64%, that's actually better than the 2019 performance, my understanding. Oh, here we go. I see the results now. Oh, only 6 polls reporting. Okay, so that's not too much to say yet, but I'll keep an eye on that while I'm looking at the US stuff. So, I don't want to go too deep into this right now because, again, it's still uncertain, and I don't want to go too hard when it's not fully certain yet. But it really does look like the Democrats have pretty much flubbed this election. It doesn't really seem like they knew what they want, or they were pushing for what voters wanted. And that seems to be what's causing this. And you look at, again, a lot of things they pushed really hard for, like abortion and such, are just not issues people care about.
And
all.
abortion is the drum that they've been hammering for months now.
Apparently
That's
they spent-
almost the only thing they've talked about.
They spent $211 million on ads talking about abortion.
Well, you were telling me earlier that you think abortion is such a losing issue that it'll be banned in 10 years, like
Yeah.
federally.
I'm pretty sure at this point, the math is working out the way I think it's working out. The Republicans have won the issue. The Roe v. Wade was like this wall that prevented the Republicans from actually getting a complete victory on it, as the Supreme Court was going to stop them from doing any bans or anything. But now that that's taken away, you are left with the cold, hard math where you have 40% who want to ban it, 30% who want all access all the time, all the way up to birth, and then 30% who don't care. You can't read the people who want some bans but not other bans as people who have strong, coherent views on abortion. They are the people who don't care. They're swing voters. They might be able to radicalize to one position or the other, but they are not hardcore voters. They're not decided.
I think it's worth saying, too, the people who don't care are probably the ones that wouldn't personally get an abortion, but wouldn't really vote on it either. Because if you're the type to personally get an abortion, I have no good reason to believe this other than a gut feeling, but I feel like if you're the type to actually personally get an abortion, you're the type to campaign for it, you know?
Yeah.
Because you talk to a lot of women, even young women, and they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't think it should be banned, but I wouldn't do it myself, but I shouldn't be able to control other people." And that's what they do. Those people aren't voting for abortion. Like, are you serious?
Shout out here to Montana's second House district where the random independent is in second place. Not even the Democrats can be second place in Montana's second. That's hilarious.
Montana is such a strange state to me because on the one hand they seem pretty hard red, but on the other hand they have like state abortion legislation expressly allowing it. It's weird.
That was probably passed ages ago.
Or maybe it's not legislation, it might be case law, but like they're not one of the states that started banning abortion, but they feel like they really should be. You know what I
know
mean?
Kansas, I believe. Or is it Nebraska? One of the two of them. They're the same state in my brain, so apologize to you two.
Wait, Nebraska and
What
who?
the heck? Oh, apparently someone went missing in Nova Scotia here. But it's in Digby, so that doesn't matter to me, because I can't do anything about it.
If anybody in Digby saw an 11-year-old, call the police.
Yep. But what I was going to say is Kansas recently had a referendum try to overturn a Supreme Court ruling where because the Supreme Court in Kansas were like, yeah, abortion's a right. You can't get rid of it. So now they're stuck with this. So that might be what's happening in Montana.
Greg Abbott wins Texas. Who's surprised? Nobody.
Oh my God. He won Texas? Can you believe
that? Oh my God, Beto lost Texas again?
Challenger Kim Reynolds there winning.
Republican also won Iowa governor, and Nebraska went Republican as well.
That's not surprising. Where are we with
shout out to Carol Blood, the Democratic candidate for Nebraska governor.
I would like to note here that with 35% reporting, Bolduc is now only down 11. He is trending very hard in his favor here. We'll see if that continues, but that's still in play for sure. In Pennsylvania, Fetterman's leads down to 3. Again, though, we have to consider that Philadelphia still has a lot of votes outstanding, so again, hard to say.
Shit, why is Michigan so slow? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We still have no results for Nevada, and not enough from Arizona to really matter. Pretty much the Democrat areas in Arizona reported pretty quickly, which is interesting. But
it's not looking super good for Carrie Lake.
No, that's just the trend that has been going on tonight. A lot of the early votes were counted first this election cycle, and then the election day ballots are being counted.
That's better. I like that better.
So this is actually a red mirage, or a blue mirage today. It's not 2020. It was a red mirage, quote unquote. This time, it's literally the opposite of that. Every single state so far, we look at here, has started blue, like Georgia, started very blue, and has been slowly, incrementally moving Walker. Same thing in North Carolina. Same thing in Wisconsin. Same thing in Pennsylvania. Same thing in Ohio. Same thing in New Hampshire. All of them, except Florida. Because Florida's a red state now. Red
Oh, that
state.
feels good. That is a massive state, too, to have red. That's nice.
Yeah, it's 30 electoral votes.
Well, no, they're not close to California, but they're up there.
Yeah, California's like 54, I believe.
They need to split that state in half.
They can't without California's approval.
Okay, alternatively, they need to cut it off completely.
Instead of having a referendum for California to leave, there's a referendum for the U.S. to leave California.
Secession. California gets to be the United States.
The United States of America. You know, that still works. The USA acronym would still be valid.
USA singular.
In a game I've recently been playing quite a bit of because it came out, Victoria 3, they did a fun thing where no matter what type of government you have, the acronym for the US is always the USA. So, like, if you're communist, it's the United Syndicalist States of America. If you're...
Oh, that's cute.
If you're a theocracy, you're the United Synods of America. I can't remember what
That's awesome.
I can't remember what the monarchist version was, but I thought that was really funny.
You were living your Brazilian dreams in Victoria 3.
I made a very prosperous and successful Brazil.
This is the Brazil that Brazil could be.
If only they had
You
more...
had, like, basically all of South America, didn't you?
Yes. It's a fun game if you like economic simulators and building things. If you hate that, you'll hate that game.
And a lot of people who hate it have been playing it and reviewing it, haven't they?
Yeah. There's... I don't understand the vibes of that. It was very clear what that game was going to be from the outset, but...
Vicky 3's more left? That's not how it sounded.
Okay, so Paradox, for all their games are fun, but Paradox does have a tendency to make their games from a historical materialist standpoint, which is dumb, and I disagree with it. Basically, like, the way Victoria 3 treats the religious population isn't very good. Because they make it basically your ideology is shaped only by your job. So unless you're a clergy member, you're not religious, which is insane. But that said, the structure of the game tries to emulate real life, so the emergent properties of this is actually right-wing, even though they have left-wing philosophies being used in the design of the game.
They had a bunch of Redditors complaining that when they opened up their borders, immigrants came and just sucked up the welfare.
Yeah, the game really makes clear that immigration depresses your local wages, your local standard of living. If you have welfare, you'll have all sorts of free people coming to your country. You'll destroy your economy if it's too heavy. So there's a lot of good to that. It does model things quite well. It isn't perfect, but no Paradox game is, and you can mod it, make it better.
Majora asks, thoughts on Brazil's election?
I think, assuming Bolsonaro has the constitution for it, if he comes back in 2026, he's going to win in a landslide. It won't even be close. Because a lot of people right now he pretty much lost because of the pandemic. And I don't think he did anything wrong in the pandemic, for that matter. But the pandemic and the ensuing economic collapse, pretty much why he lost. And once it becomes clear what happens when Lula and left-wing politics comes in, and the fact that crime's going to resurface, and the poverty rate's going to go back up again, everyone is going to be outraged. And it might actually turn Brazil more conservative than it already is. But we'll see. 4 years can do quite a lot of damage, as Joe Biden has proven. So I'm personally sad for Brazil that Bolsonaro lost, but maybe in the long term, this was the better result for them. Just like in the U.S.
surprised that they lost.
Just like in the U.S. here, just to before I could touch that there, Trump losing was probably actually better for conservatives in the U.S. than Trump winning in 2020. And also in Canada, the conservatives losing in 2021 was probably better for the conservatives because then we won't have a wet paper towel as leader.
I'm sure that our conservative loss was just incompetence, but I'm still on the side of Trump losing in 2020 was a big 4D chess move.
You would really have a hard time convincing me it wasn't 4D chess.
Oh, Jared says Premier Danielle Smith wins the Brooks Medicine Hat by-election.
Interesting. I cannot find a good site that's reporting this data for this. I'm not disagreeing with you or contesting you, Walsh. Google is not being my friend here. It was pretty obvious to me that she should win, regardless of what happens, because it was a UCP riding, and she is the leader, and leaders always outperform their party, more or less, but her margin will matter. The NDP and the media will try to make it seem like if she gets anywhere below 60, that she'll done worse, but the UCP got like 60% in 2019 there, so that's kind of dumb.
I'd like to just point out, while we have a bit of a lull here, that CNN has called a bunch of governors so far, and I'm pretty sure they've all been Republicans. Senators, too.
Just going back over here, so Shapiro's up 11. Why is the reporting in Delaware still hasn't reported in again? It's Delaware County, so Shapiro might have won this, but it's hard to say. I'm not convinced for now, or not fully convinced. Zeldin is gaining ground in New York, not to be surprising. Blue Mirage and all coming again, once again. Gaining ground. He's down 22. I'm not sure if he has enough, but we'll see. Kansas is getting closer. This is a very important one because if Schmidt wins, then they can do. I believe they can do a constitutional amendment in Kansas and get rid of overturn the Supreme Court ruling that stops them from banning abortion. And if that happens, then Kansas is going to join the rest of its kin and ban abortion outright. Mark my words. Senate-wise, where are we? Walker's still ticking upward. He's almost there. The fact that NBC here is not calling Ohio or North Carolina is kind of a joke. They're called New Hampshire, but they won't call those other ones. I guess New Hampshire's a bigger lead, but New Hampshire's pretty much these other ones are pretty much settled, in my opinion. I would call North Carolina and Wisconsin here. Not Wisconsin, Ohio. Georgia and Wisconsin are going Republican here. So if Georgia does go, and Pennsylvania's super razor thin here. I think 53 is definitely still a possibility for Republicans here, depending on how Arizona goes, but it's too early to count, so we can't really say anything. New Hampshire, I think this is just a load of shit.
Wait. How'd they call New Hampshire?
Democrat right now, but we're at 49% counted.
That's bullshit. They just want me to lose money.
Well, you don't lose money until Bolduc concedes, technically.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how do they... Because these sites, they definitely don't go by, like, news coverage. They're going to wait until everything's counted.
Yeah.
What is the, like, official source for that?
What would the word for that be? That would be, like, congressional... That'd be like January 6th or whatever the day that would be this year. Let's see.
God, they don't wait that long for Senate stuff, do
I
they?
think that'd be January 5th this year that would be determined. Yeah, they just...
That takes so long.
Well, I think. I'm not 100% certain. Well, keep in mind, this election only affects January 20th going forward. Like, the new House contingent only enters January 20th, I believe.
I'm sure the bookie site isn't going to make me wait 3 months.
They won't. It will pay you out when they concede.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Pennsylvania Senate. Whew. Getting very close. Though the line in waiting here is Delaware County. How that will go. Apparently there's 1.7 million votes outstanding, according to NBC's estimate. Philadelphia's pretty low. Bucks County here is actually potentially a swing, so that's not that bad. Really depends on what the election day vote turns out in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. Would not count us out yet, though. Let's see. Arizona's so slow at counting. I hate this.
Arizona has a reputation for that, don't they?
Yeah. Because, like, you know that things are going to get a lot closer here because Greenlee County, Cochise County, Navajo County, Pinal County, and Yuma County are all very Republican counties. So there's 5 different counties that are all going to shift really hard red here. And Maricopa is going to also shift probably 10, 15 points towards Masters. So he's still very much can win this, even though there's only 49% left, but I have no idea. It's hard to say. And we still have nothing from Nevada, nothing from Utah, though Utah's safe red. And frankly, even if Mike Lee loses, which he won't, McMullen is pretty conservative, so he's going to probably caucus with the Republicans anyways. Though, we're now getting into the dregs of this, where it's getting pretty... Oh, this last vote dump was bad for Walker. That's interesting. We'll see here. Let's back in... What is CNN saying?
It's 1,400 votes in an incredibly competitive state in recent years. So we're going to watch this play out. We're at 60%, which means we're going to watch it and count for quite some time. Let's just take a look at what we got. Milwaukee is your largest vote pool. It's 16.5% of the state population.
Twitter is
And
being
Mandela Barnes
interesting
getting
again.
66%.
What's Twitter up to?
A gentleman named King Size Beard of Christmas Past says, "Turn out, we do it for the kids," and posts a picture of himself with an I voted sticker with a giant-ass beard dyed all rainbow colors. So I kind of worry about this guy doing anything for the kids.
Worth calling out for incompetence here. Connecticut's apparently only counted 7%, and I'm pretty sure they closed 2 hours ago. How? How are you this bad?
How's New Hampshire doing?
I don't think anything's changed.
It was, what, like 49% or something?
It's now 50%. Hassan's up plus 12, but that doesn't really tell you much. Let's do a quick comparison here. So, bringing up real clear politics here. Is this centered in the screen? Yes.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, Twitter seething. Do you know that meme of the little girl in the backseat of a car who's like, she's got the buck teeth and she's giving the side eyes? You know that meme.
Yeah.
I swear to God, this picture is the adult version of her. It's the same energy, and it's Sarah Moore Wagner on Twitter says, "Keeping J.D. Vance out of the Senate won Ohio at the time. That didn't go very well for her, but holy shit, the resemblance is uncanny."
So, real clear here expects Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada to eventually go Republican. They're expecting 53. They think New Hampshire is going to go to Hassan, though only by 1.4. So we'll see here how that actually turns out for now. And actually, just another comparison for real clear is their House map. They have 227, 174 with 34 toss-ups. So depending on how you want to split this up, you're looking at 244 to 261 probably range. Because if this is your true toss-up where it's 50-50, then you would expect half of them to go Republican. So this could go 241 to 244 to 261 here for the real clear. That's my model is smack dab in the middle of that range, pretty much.
Nice.
So we're going to see how these things evolve here. Kansas is still chugging away. Wisconsin 2. Michigan. Nothing from Nevada. Brooks Medicine.
So this isn't.
Sorry, you
This
go.
isn't American coping, but it is relevant to Brooks Medicine Hat. Trending in Canada is the hashtag Bring Back Masks.
Ooh. 28 polls reporting from the news report I'm seeing here, and the New Democrats are in third place. That's pretty embarrassing. Oh, California's reporting. NBC with 0 votes in. I think Gavin Newsom is going to win. Probably is, though, to be fair. One that is worth keeping an eye out here is Oregon. The polling looks like Christine Drazan is going to win because of three-way vote splitting. Or vote splitting with Betsy Johnson and Tina Kotek. But it will probably be a while before we get stuff in here because I believe Oregon does all by mail, or is that Washington where everything's vote by mail? So we'll see how that goes. Might take forever to report, and I might actually call it quits tonight before we even get there. And where are we for Senate? We don't have Washington in yet, so we'll see how far this keeps going. Unfortunately, I do have work in the morning, so I can't stay up forever on this, but we'll keep going as we're going. So overall here, things seem to be trending roughly in line with what I'm thinking, or what I was forecasting. The only outlier so far is New Hampshire, but I will say New Hampshire is too close, not enough votes counted yet to call it, but in general terms, I would say New Hampshire is, the polling generally sucks there. So even if we look at here, and we go back to Senate projections, and we get to New Hampshire, real clear, which is the raw polling average, plus 1.4. If this is how New Hampshire finishes, the polling in New Hampshire will, for the first time possibly, be the opposite error, where the Democrats are underestimated. That doesn't really happen. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is going to close. It's just a question of how much will it close.
I just sent you an image that I think the stream should be able to see, because it is basically summing up the hashtag vote on Twitter right now. Cracking me up.
I have to figure out how to actually do this. You're normally the one who does this one.
Oh, Nick Jonas voted.
And people care?
I guess so.
But, okay, so we're just gonna get this up here. We're gonna create a image. Now I understand why all these people always have dedicated persons for running this.
Oh my god. Some, like... You know how there are Twitter accounts that are stuff like, you know, cats in boxes or whatever, right?
I guess.
Just like pictures of something. This one is frogs in hats. And for some reason, Frogs in Hats decided that they needed to let all of their followers know exactly their political position on this voting day. Because Frogs in Hats fully support voting rights. Frogs in Hats are pro-union. Frogs in Hats believe you should be in charge of your body. Frogs in Hats are pro-science.
Here we go.
Thank you, Frogs in Hats. I'm sure everybody needed to know
We
that.
have our lovely poster in the corner now. Can everyone see this lovely?
I hope this encourages you to vote if you're American.
This is the Democrat coalition. This is their campaign.
That's the new coexist sticker. That's hilarious.
Wow.
Man, no, if that's supposed to be like an abortion supporting uterus, that thing needs to be much more of a mess than it is.
Ugh. Don't get me started on that. There's NPR released audio a while back, like this month, where they had live audio of an abortion happening.
Why would you bring that up?
Don't ever listen to that. It is, I mean, if you are pro-abortion, listen to that, but it is horrifying.
I don't even know what that would entail, and I don't want to.
I'm not going to describe it.
Please don't.
One thing that's worth noting
That's
here.
awful. Why did they think that was a good fucking idea?
No
That's
idea.
like I forget which news agency it was, but they were posting pictures of quote unquote pregnancy tissue at like 15 weeks or something, trying to say like, oh, this isn't a baby, why can't you abort it? And it's like pieces of like the like sack lining and shit, and people were blowing them up. So fucking stupid. I don't know why they think these things are a good idea.
One proud example of weird decisions not to call things. NBC News calls New Hampshire already, but South Carolina's 1st congressional district, plus 14 margin, 90% reported, that's not called. Why? I don't know. No one...
Are they Republican?
Yeah, it's Republican leading, that's why it's not been called, but
That's probably why.
that was obviously going Republican. I don't know how this is a contested thing.
Oh my god, so many people on Twitter are hyping up this insulin thing from Biden. Are you actually that stupid?
It's the current thing.
What the fuck? Taking out Al-Qaeda's top leader is on this list.
Did Biden do that?
I don't think that even happened. I think that's straight up not true. But Chris, he did confirm the first black woman Supreme Court justice, which is a weird way to say that, but I know they can't say female because their heads will explode.
Yeah, that is a weird way to phrase that.
Confirming the most diverse set of judges to the federal bench. You confirmed one. You confirmed one. What do you mean? Your set is one.
One is the most diverse, I guess.
Apparently, NATO expansion to Sweden and Finland was entirely Biden's doing.
What?
Oh, Biden ended America's longest war. And isn't he proud of how that went?
I, for one, think that anyone who's proud of how Afghanistan ended should go to Afghanistan themselves.
The American Rescue Plan is on this. Oh my god. Is this a parody account? I don't think it is.
So upstate New York is starting to go quite red, to the surprise of, wait for it, no one. I think I was underestimating this quite a bit. So we're at like, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're probably at 9 Republican seats in New York, so that's 2 less minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if House 19 here also goes that way. It's only 31% in. So I could be off by 3 in New York, which is, again, kind of what I was saying with Colorado earlier. We go to Colorado and point this out. So House 2 and House 7 here are quite big districts, but they have quite a bit of urban population in them, which are really concentrated right here. But they have a lot of pretty much empty ruralness. So my model, because it's calibrated in Canada, where our districts are coherent and make sense. Like, a city is a city, rural area is a rural area, a suburb is a suburb. It's not combining all three of them, to at least to the best of the ability. There are a few circumstances where you have like a small city or a small town that's like 50,000 people, but that's not enough to make a whole district. But for the most part, they make sense. This House 2 doesn't make sense. This is a super gerrymandered district here.
More coping. Pyro Jesus on Twitter says, I just went to vote, was informed that I'm not registered to vote and that I will not be able to vote today as the registration period has ended and my retired Army ID card is not a valid form of ID. This is not the America we fought for. Oh no, you didn't register to vote and you didn't bring a proper form of ID. Such injustice, much wow.
So this is just to say on my end that there's districts like House 7 and House 2 here, which I'm probably wrong because they've been falsely classified as rural when they're urban. But there's also districts in upstate New York here, like I'm going to say, I think House 19, which I think is going to go Republican, which I've classified as something different. I don't recall what I classified it as. I double to check the math here. So again, I think I could be wrong on some of them, but I think the net is going to be the same. It's just because it should error both ways, if that makes sense. Does it make sense, Lex?
I'm so sorry. Sick brain was scanning Twitter.
Too high level?
A little bit. Do you want to say that again in small words?
Okay. My model, calibrated for the US, not for Canada, sorry, erroneously classify some US districts as urban or rural when they're not.
Okay.
But that goes both ways across the US, so it's likely not actually going to affect any results, really.
Yeah, you'll probably just get like some trade-offs, and then you'll have like some districts that are wrong, but like in aggregate, I imagine they'll be okay.
Drazen with 24% in is up 4. That's pretty big. Still nothing from Nevada. That's pretty embarrassing. They've been closed for an hour. Whew, this is starting to slow down. They're really chugging. U.S. really sucks at counting ballots. In Canada, this would be pretty much all done by this point.
This person's coping for the Green Party. I didn't even know they had one of those.
They do.
It says the useless Democratic supermajority in California proves that Democrats are not the answer. But then she says hashtag Green Party.
That's a choice. Smiley is currently leading in... oh, wait. This is like a complete meme. She's only leading because only Republican counties have reported so far.
Chris, look.
What?
A furry went to vote.
Oh. Weird and cringe. Why would you go...
They voted with that thing on
Why
their
would
head.
you go vote with the fursuit on? That's weird.
I imagine that they didn't. They just like put the sticker on when they got home, but I really hope that they did.
Slow counting so far. Wow. US sucks. How do you count this slow, guys? Are any Americans even watching at this point? It might just be the Canadians left.
Yeah, probably. Do we have any Americans that watch?
I do have American viewers, though the Canadian viewers are way more dedicated.
Man, even Twitter is harping on abortion. Like, bruh, nobody cares. Pretty much all of the abortion voters are the ones on Twitter.
There's really... this is kind of a hard one. There's really not much to say right now. There's really... Like, the counting is so slow, and the coverage is so boring.
Up now, and an election denier.
Reprotection on Twitter says abortion betrays women. Women deserve better than... Oh, wait, no, that made sense. Oh, never mind. This actually makes sense. I'm sorry. I misread it. Because it says women deserve better than abortion, and that's true.
Yeah, it is true.
Sick Brain read the picture first. I thought it said, like... I don't know. Sick Brain, man.
New Mexico's probably going to be really close here, but I'm pretty sure the Democrats are going to win this one. Grisham is up about 7, and there's quite a few counties that I'm expecting to go Republican that haven't counted yet. But I don't think it's going to be enough to overturn the 40,000 point lead or so. I think it's going to narrow, but I think New Hampshire or New Mexico.
Kevin
It's
Bacon
probably
voted absentee like a loser.
That is a loser.
Sorry, I'm at the point in the evening that my brain's gone, so I'm just reporting on Twitter. So I'm sorry if I'm interrupting anything actually important.
Honestly, there's really not much going on here. This is so slow at counting. There's just I'm confused. Ontario did this like 5 times faster.
Yeah, that's lame. How is
Whew.
Oh, which state was being really slow that wasn't New Hampshire?
Nevada? Nevada hasn't been counted yet.
Oh God, Jose on Twitter put his "I voted" sticker on his nipple. Why would you do that?
That sounds extremely painful once you finally remove
Uh,
that.
I mean, it's probably shitty and will fall off anyway, but why would you feel the need to post this picture? He's also got like one of those indented sternums. He looks very strange.
Worth noting here, in Kansas, as you look here, as I'm hovering over these, a lot of the Democrat counties are higher than average reported rate. I suspect Schmidt might be able to come back here. It really depends on how many people are in the rest of these Republican counties. But like some of these, like Comanche over here, only 20% reported in. Schmidt might overtake this.
Ew, Megan Goebel on Twitter, Megan Goebel, she, her, excuse me. In her bio, she says she is a girl mom, wife, and trans youth advocate. Says, please vote with this sweet face in mind today, hashtag protect trans kids. It's a picture of a child that can't be any older than 10. Which is clearly a boy dressed up to look like a girl. And I think this is one of those classic examples of a parent that really, really wanted a daughter and got a son instead. And it's grossing me out. Yes, vote with that face in mind, but vote the opposite way, please. Protect this child. Ugh.
Why are they calling... I wouldn't be calling New York right now. This is actually... Like, Manhattan itself has already voted well above this, and her margin is not that high. A lot of upstate New York hasn't even counted yet. I don't know. Zeldin, I think, is a bit of a sleeper here. I don't necessarily think he's going to win, but this is going to be way closer, and I think it's going to be neck and neck here. Oh,
This Twitter feed is gross.
Of course it is. You're watching it like Democrat Twitter. There is...
This is just tweets I pray to God are fake about, like, stuff that this transgender child definitely said 100% of his own accord. Like Harper just now. Mama, did you know there's a word called transphobia? It means people are scared of transgender people. What a dumb thing to be scared of. We aren't scary. We're just people. I'm sure a child that can't be any older than 10 definitely said that. And I'm sure you're not using your kid for clout on the internet. I'm sure that's what's happening.
Okay, North Carolina's been called. Not surprising. And Pennsylvania, razor thin. 1% lead for Fetterman here. A lot of these counties, too, are really... Like... Some of the ones that have the lowest ones are the ones that Oz can actually gain ground in, like Buck County, Erie, Luzerne, Monroe. Like, these are ones that Oz can actually gain ground in on election day. Yes, you still have Delaware County that has a bunch unreported, and Philadelphia is pretty low, like proper. But again, a lot of these counties that are low reporting are ones that you can expect Oz to actually gain ground in. So Oz winning is still very much in the picture. I was a bit more bearish on him early this evening, but I think at this point, I'm willing to put... I feel like Oz is going to win this one now. Like, my model says he should. But now my gut also feels this way. It's not 100% certain, but...
It shocks me that Fetterman has any kind of fighting chance.
Well, see, the problem is early voting in Pennsylvania exists. So a lot of people voted before they could really see that Fetterman is basically dead. Like, sorry, guy, you can barely speak. How anyone voted... How anyone who votes for that man in the next election cycle votes early, I don't know. Like, that should spurn you from voting early for the rest of your life.
Where at?
People who voted for Fetterman.
Oh my god. Wait, where, how early can you vote? Could they vote like pre-stroke?
They could vote in September.
What? That wasn't pre-stroke.
Yeah, but that was before anyone was really aware of how bad it was. He was lying to the public about how bad a stroke was.
Yo, early voting's hilarious. Didn't some early voting shenanigans happen in 2016 when Bernie Sanders dropped out?
Maybe?
I feel like I remember this happening. Bernie Sanders dropped out kind of late and took a lot of early votes with him, didn't he?
I don't know. I wasn't following that closely.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Wisconsin?
That was back when I still thought that Trump was that Hillary was the lesser of two evils.
I never thought that.
You never did think that. That's the between us, that's the only big turn that I've made. You've made a couple of big turns, but I think that's the only big turn that I've really made.
You were really adamant. You really thought he was the worst one.
Yeah, but I was also in high school. Well, actually, at that point, I would have been in university. Same shit. I mean, you know how much attention I paid back then.
It looks like to me that Tim Mitchell's is probably going to win gubernatorial race in Wisconsin. He's down right now, but looking at the counties that are left and looking at the vote shares that's coming, I expect he's going to win this one. Lake is obviously going to win it in Arizona. She's down right now, but that's just because early votes came first. Kansas, I'm also thinking it's going to go Schmidt here. Oh, welcome back, Yeti. I think we're going to start...
Hi.
I think we're going to get close to winding down here. We're both I'm actually pretty tired, and I know Lex is probably pretty tired herself. And
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
about to keel
taking
over.
forever to count here. I've run out of things to say in the evening because this is so painfully slow. Like, Georgia closed 5 hours ago, and they still have 12% left. How slow are these guys at counting? This is awful. Oof. Interesting. They are calling Washington. That's not that surprising. There's a couple House seats. There's just... I think, here, folks, I think I'm going to call this for the night. I don't have the Constitution to stay up for another hour waiting for enough results for this election to be actually clear. I didn't think it was going to take this long to count. This feels slower than 2020. And you would have assumed that since 2020 they would have tried to make this faster.
No, of course not. You would assume, but they absolutely didn't.
Like, Florida counted really quickly. Why can't they all be like Florida?
Because Florida was probably honest.
Like, this is so... Ugh.
A lot of crazy eyes and cat eye glasses voting blue here.
That's always like that. Mad Yeti, you're right, it did take 2 days, but that's because Arizona and I guess Georgia, the two I'm complaining about, and Pennsylvania, were all incompetent at counting. But it's not just those that are incompetent. Like, Nevada hasn't counted at all yet in an hour and a half. 0 results. New Hampshire's at 57% in. Connecticut's at 26. Maine's 48. Like, some of these are bad. Michigan's at 38. Like, these are way lower than 2020. Like, this is significantly slower. And then we still have 1 to 2 hours for Hawaii and Alaska. So unless you have much more to go on tonight, Lex, I'm pretty much out of things to discuss, and it'll just be dead air here. And
Yeah, Twitter's not interesting anymore. I think I'm ready to call it.
I give mad props to. I'm a little behind time here, but this guy on CNN, mad props to him. He can talk for hours apparently about almost nothing. He'll happily babble on.
He's getting paid a lot more than you are, my dear.
I mean, $1 is a lot more than I'm getting paid.
Haha.
But oh boy, not much.
So to close off the stream, how confident are you feeling in your model?
Yes. So just to close off here, so I'm very confident in, like, we go to Senate, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, I think, are going to go the way I forecast. Maybe not necessarily the margin, but the way I forecast. Washington, it's not a surprise to me. That was kind of a dark horse that Smiley wins, but it is what it is. Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. Sorry, Arizona and Nevada are kind of hard to say right now because it's so little counting. Nevada at 0. So hard to say. Georgia's exactly where I thought it was. I didn't think it was going to be conclusive tonight, but I think Walker will win in the end. In Arizona, I suspect we will see the Republicans end up winning, but it'll take forever. House-wise, we're at 114 to 170, but we're only at 8-2 flip because a lot of these aren't called yet. So the states that have a lot counted are tending the way I said. So if we throw up my house map and we put it to be better and we remove the love image, if that's what that word is supposed to be, we look at states that are counted heavily, like Georgia. It's looking close to 9-5. Oh, I said 9-5. South Carolina, 6-1, 6-1. North Carolina, it looks like I'm slightly off on, which is interesting, but that's expected. Florida, outperformed my own model. It's 28. Ohio's going very similar to where I forecast. Indiana's on spot. Like, a lot of these states that have counted a lot are exactly where I expect them to be. There's a couple of states like Virginia or North Carolina that are slightly more pro-Dem. There's some states like Florida that are more pro-Republican. But again, that should be expected because any accurate model based on real fundamentals is going to error both ways. So overall, pretty satisfied so far. We don't have all the results in, so we don't know for 100%. But I think my model is going to be relatively accurate here. I think we're going to be in the right ballpark. The numbers are going the way I think they're going. I think the Republicans probably should pick up another about 80 seats or so. But we don't know for certain yet until everything's counted. But that's where I'm thinking.
And how are you doing versus Nate Silver?
You'll get a better rundown of that when I do a postmortem, but he's probably doing terrible. It'll be easy to compare that when we actually have the raw numbers, like fully counted in.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good note to end on.
Yes, I think it is. I think we'll end this here. There's not much more to say, and this counting is so slow that there's not much else to do. So we're going to wrap this up here, and thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you want to follow through with what the channel's doing or what content I'm doing, follow me on Twitter at Bagelpolling. I am going to when I do the post-mortem, which it depends a bit when all the votes are done counting, I will update what the channel is going to look like for the next little bit because there's not any big elections going on, so there's going to be a delay. But expect that there's going to be probably less videos for the rest of this year, and I'm going to pick up more in January next year with some different kind of content. Also, keep updating for the core stuff that I'm covering, like Canada, Alberta, etc. But it'll be probably less. So, with that, I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the future.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Have a good night.